Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Many Attempted Marriages of the Sun Goddess by Reina at the End. In a moment of pure desperation, Luffy awakens the true power of the Nika Nika fruit at Marineford. The consequences are many, but the one she really can't wrap her head around is why she's suddenly being proposed to by Big Mom's son? And why are so many of her guy Nakama acting so weird about it? Is there something she's missing here? Huge shout out to all the warlords of this channel. You know who you are. Want to stand among legends? Join the channel membership and show your support. Adios.
Chapter 9. Peace Mains and Morganeers. You want to train Luffy, Rayleigh said as he glared at Garp in disbelief, for the New World? That's right, the Navy hero simply answered with a nod. The two veterans were about to get into a moderately heated argument while Luffy remained asleep. Rayleigh gave Garp the benefit of the doubt and decided to hear him out. After all, the last thing Luffy needs is malevolent intruders interrupting his training. But why? Based on what Luffy told me, you just want to control him. You weren't even there for him when he was growing up. You just dumped him in the hands of a bunch of outlaws. Is it any wonder he turned out the way he did? Garp sighed. You're as cut and dry as ever, I see, he chuckled before letting out a sigh. It's true. I'm the one at fault for letting Luffy pursue a life of piracy. All I wanted was to make him into a man and train him to become a marine officer, but I was too stubborn to let him enjoy his childhood. Hell, I almost got him killed on multiple occasions. If it wasn't for that devil fruit he ate, he might not have survived to see today. I hate to admit it, but I think I owe red-haired for that one. That boy was the first of his kind that I haven't seen since Roger's era, a peace main. Rayleigh raised an eyebrow, taken back by the thought that Garp, one of the most exalted marines in the world, actually acknowledged the existence of peace mains. I now see that Luffy fits into that category. I tried to convince him that all pirates were just a bunch of bandits that sailed the seas and had no future. I turned a blind eye to the ideology of what Roger stood for, even though I once fought alongside him to defeat a common enemy. The old war veteran gripped the bridge of his nose, letting out a shaky exhale. But you were right, I wasn't there for Luffy. I wasn't even there for Dragon. Just look at what my stupid pride has done. My son became the most wanted criminal in the world. My adopted grandson was murdered by one of my colleagues. I helped spark a war that created probably the most dangerous pirate to date, and despite all the chaos, I chose my job over my family. Garp then vented his frustration by slamming his fist into a nearby tree, shaking it, and leaving a clean dent in the trunk. This isn't justice, he growled through his teeth. Wah! Garp's tantrum was interrupted by the moans of his waking grandson, who was most likely woken up by the intense vibrations. Luffy sat up, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes and yawning, when the first thing he noticed was Rayleigh sitting closest to him. Despite being practically in front of him, Garp had not yet been noticed. Hey, old man, can you keep it down? Luffy muttered tiredly at Rayleigh. I'm trying, eh? Luffy's vision was starting to come into focus as his eyes shifted to the all-too-familiar figure standing just a few feet away with his arms crossed. His mind goes back to the unexpected arrival of his grandfather back in the clearing. You, Luffy hissed as he squinted at Garp angrily. Luffy's first instinct was to pull off the blanket covering him and throw an enraged punch into his grandfather's face, just like he did at Marineford. However, he managed to compose himself enough to take special precautions to keep himself from rushing into a fight he can't win. He knew full well what kind of power his grandpa pulled behind those punches. And considering their history combined with how seriously he takes his job, Luffy knew he wouldn't last 5 seconds. Easy, Luffy, Rayleigh stepped in to stop his student from getting out of hand. Luffy stared at his mentor out of the corner of his eye for a moment in silence before glancing back at Garp, seeing the passive look on his face. Letting out an exhale through his nose, Luffy leaned back into his makeshift bed and folded his arms impatiently. What are you doing here, old man? Honestly, Garp was expecting far worse. Garp sat down on a log, making himself comfortable before answering his grandson. Well, I already explained my reasoning to Rayleigh, and I don't like repeating myself. So, to summarize, I'm here to help you." Luffy flinched in disbelief before exclaiming, "What? Why should I believe you? How do I know you're not just here to arrest me?" Garp understood why Luffy was giving him this much lip, but that didn't stop him from getting back into his grandson's good graces. "Luffy, why are you really here?" Luffy interrupted, feeling a surge of anger at the old marine, remembering how Garp had failed to protect Ace when he had the chance. "No, forget it. I don't want to talk to you. You let Ace die." Before he could get another word out, Luffy lowered his head and panted for air. He was still feeling the effects of the intense training from earlier. During Luffy's recovery, Garp monitored him closely, but with the intense guilt washing over him and making no steps to deny it, dark shadows showed on his face, hiding his eyes. He was guilty. The whole kaleidoscope of doubts and emotions he hadn't felt for a long time had pushed him to the brink of vulnerability. Garp hung his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know, Luffy. And I'm sorry. I failed both you and Ace." Ignoring the pain, Luffy slowly looked up at Garp. He felt a twinge of guilt at the pain he could see in Garp's eyes. He knew that Garp had loved Ace just as much as he did, and that the old marine had been carrying his own burden of guilt since the war. "But I don't understand," Luffy said hesitantly. "Why didn't you do anything to stop it? You're a marine. You could have stopped the execution?" Garp looked up at Luffy, a tear starting to form in his eye. "I couldn't, Luffy. I couldn't bring myself to fight against the Marines, even for Ace. First was a Marine for too long, and I couldn't betray my duty." Luffy looked at Garp for a long moment, then his expression softened. "I don't like it. But I think I understand, Gramps. I still can't forgive you, though. At least, not yet." Garp looked at Luffy in surprise, then a look of relief washed over his face. "Thank you, Luffy. That means a lot to me." Luffy smiled at Garp, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. "I'll keep moving forward, Gramps," Luffy said, "and I'll make sure that Ace's memory lives on." That's what he would have wanted. Garp nodded, his own resolve strengthening. "Oh, there's something else that I should have told you a long time ago." This time his tone was so completely different compared to the strict and demanding voice that he used to address him, hit him, and lecture him. Luffy was stunned momentarily, his voice husky from fatigue again. "What is it?" Garp nodded gratefully before straightening his posture and clearing his throat. Back when Roger first started out as a pirate, he earned himself an unusual reputation. The man became more famous than infamous. Even as a pirate, he never attacked ordinary civilians, unless they asked for it. All the treasure and wealth he gained, before he found the One Piece, came from looting other pirates who attacked him or swiping them from some ancient ruins. "What's your point?" Luffy asked. "My point is, Roger was, what we in the Marines would call him, a peace main." Luffy looked at him in confusion at the unfamiliar word. "What's a peace main?" "They're a type of pirate that cares little about treasure and, instead, are more motivated by the sense of adventure. Not to say they wouldn't steal or fight other pirates at all. They work towards peaceful resolutions and avoid conflicts as much as possible," Garp explained with the tone of a professional storyteller. Luffy scratched his head. "But isn't fighting necessary sometimes? Like when I fought Arlong and Crocodile?" "That's where the Morganiers come in," Garp replied. "Morganiers believe that violence is necessary. They're willing to fight to fulfill their selfish ambitions, even if it means getting their hands dirty. Morganiers currently outnumber peace mains 1,000 to 1 easy." Luffy nodded. "Do you think I am?" Garp smiled. "You're a bit of both, Luffy. Sometimes you need to use your fists to protect the innocent and make sure justice is served. Other times, you can use your words and find a peaceful solution." Luffy hid his smile. "I guess I'll have to live with it." He turns his gaze to the former vice captain of the Roger Pirates. Was the king of the pirates really a peace main? Well, Rayleigh paused. The captain never really put any fancy labels on himself, aside from just calling himself the captain of a pirate crew. I guess some people just recognized a few of his good deeds, which were unusual behavior for normal pirates, and they started referring to our crew as the peace mains on a few occasions. Garp chuckled. "That's exactly how I started to see Luffy's crew after I met them back on Water 7. Luffy turned to face his grandfather with a skeptical glare. "Wait, if you knew about this all along, Then why didn't you just tell me back when I was a kid, instead of trying to force me to become a Marine? Garp took a deep breath before answering. I wanted you to become a Marine because I believe in justice, Luffy. The Marines are the ones who uphold justice and protect the innocent. I wanted you to be a part of that. Luffy frowned. But isn't justice about helping people? Like how my crew and I helped the people of Alabasta. Exactly, Luffy, Garp said, nodding. The Marines are there to help people and protect them from those who would do them harm. I wanted you to be a part of that, to harness your strength and use it to make a difference in the world. The Marines aren't exactly the saints that everyone wants to believe they are, Garp. You know that, right? Rayleigh intervened, his voice calm as usual. Garp sighed. I won't deny that the Navy has seen its fair share of corruption among its ranks. But that's why we need good Marines like you, Luffy. Ones who will stand up for what's right and do the right thing, even if it's hard. Luffy looked down at his hands, thinking. I like helping people, Grandpa. But I don't want to be a part of something that hurts them too. Garp shuffles closer to Luffy, putting his hand on his grandson's shoulder. I understand, Luffy. And I'm proud of you for standing up for what you believe in. Just remember, there are good and bad people in every organization. It's up to us to make sure we're on the right side of things. Luffy nodded, a determined look in his eyes. I can do that. But don't think that I've forgiven you yet. I'm still gonna be king of the pirates one day, so I'm gonna get stronger than anyone in the New World, and I'll help people along the way no matter what. Garp smiled. I know you will, Luffy, and no matter what path you choose, I'll always be proud of you. Luffy smiled back, genuinely. Anyway, Garp exclaimed, patting Luffy on the back, since I'm here, I've got a whole year in my schedule to help improve your skills before I have to get back to Navy HQ. Rayleigh chuckled. It's good to have you with us, Garp. Luffy could use all the help he can get. Luffy frowned. Hey, I'm not that weak, Garp laughed. Of course not, Luffy. But there's always room for improvement. Luffy pouted childishly, crossing his arms. Peef, whatever. The old Marine couldn't be any more proud of his grandson, pleased to hear the progress he was already making under Rayleigh's tutelage. The old Marine reached into his pocket and pulled out a rolled-up piece of paper. Here, Luffy. I have something for you. Luffy took the paper and unrolled it, revealing his latest wanted poster. He looked at the image of himself with a grin, pleased to see that his bounty had increased yet again. Wanted dead or alive Monkey D. Luffy 400 million bots. Wow, 400 million berries. That's a lot. When did it go up? Garp chuckled. You always have been quite the troublemaker, Luffy. After what you pulled off at Marineford, it's no wonder the world government has put such a high price on your head. Luffy shrugged. I don't care about the money. I just want to have fun and become stronger, so I can become king of the pirates. Garp nodded, a serious look on his face. I know, Luffy. But you have to be careful. The higher your bounty gets, the more dangerous your enemies become. You'll need to stay on your toes if you want to survive. Luffy nodded, his expression turning serious as well. I know, Gramps. That's exactly why I need to train harder than I ever have before. And I won't let anyone stop me. I'll keep fighting and growing stronger until I achieve my dream. Garp smiled at Luffy's determination, proud of his grandson for his unwavering resolve. I know you will, Luffy. Just remember, I'll always be here to support you from now on, no matter what. Luffy grinned back at Garp. Thanks, Gramps. And with that, Luffy tucked his latest wanted poster safely in his pocket. He had a long way to go before he became the Pirate King, but with the invaluable training that is to come, his crew by his side, and his family's support, he knew he could achieve anything. 1 year later, after that fateful night, Luffy began his training with Rayleigh and Garp. They started with mastering all 3 forms of haki that they both knew, teaching Luffy how to use his observation haki to not only sense the presence of the world itself around him but to peek mere seconds into the future. Holding nothing back, Garp would dart around Luffy, trying to surprise him, but Luffy's senses were so sharp that he could always anticipate Garp's movements. Next, they moved on to armament haki, teaching Luffy how to channel his haki into solid objects, bypassing any defense and destroying them from the inside out. Garp was an expert at this, and he sparred with Luffy, showing him how to use the full extent of his strength. Finding nothing harder than stone to test it on, Rayleigh enlisted the help of the Kuja pirates to provide them with large, thick steel slabs to be used as sturdy training dummies. It was then Rayleigh's turn to help him master his conqueror's haki, teaching Luffy how to not only overwhelm his opponent's willpower but also utilize it with such precision that he can avoid accidentally using it on his own allies while his opponents will still feel the full force of his presence. Finally, they moved on to the 6 powers, teaching Luffy how to use his body as a weapon in the event that his devil fruit powers were off the table. Garp was a master of the 6 powers, and he showed Luffy how to use Tempest Kick to slice through objects, Moonwalk to leap incredible distances, and Shave to move at lightning speed, although Rayleigh already taught him that last one. Luckily, Garp was there to perfect it. It was grueling work, but Luffy was determined to master these techniques. He trained day and night, pushing himself to his limits and beyond. And with Rayleigh and Garp's guidance, he began to improve at an incredible rate. As time passed, Luffy's training continued. He became stronger and faster, his haki growing more powerful with each passing day. He was almost at his peak, but there was still one final step in his training that he had to accomplish, awakening his devil fruit. And finally, the day came when Garp declared that Luffy had mastered everything he had to teach him. The trio stood on the beach of Luscaina, preparing to bid farewell to each other. The old marine had been thoroughly impressed with the progress that his grandson had made over the past year, and he knew that he could leave the rest of his training in Rayleigh's capable hands. "You've come a long way, Luffy," Garp said, smiling proudly. "I'd say you've got what it takes to become the king of the pirates. However, I know that isn't enough to satisfy you." Rayleigh clapped Luffy on the back. "Don't worry about a thing, Garp. I'll still be here to see Luffy's training through to the end, every step of the way." "Grandpa, are you sure you have to go?" Luffy asked his grandfather sadly. Luffy had come to forgive his grandfather for his follies in the past year. He knew NGE the past, but he could choose to forgive and move forward rather than hold a pointless grudge. Garp nodded. "Yes, Luffy. Duty calls. There are some things that I have to take care of, but we'll see each other again before you know it." Luffy pouted slightly, but he knew that Garp had important work to do. "Okay, Grandpa, stay safe." Garp ruffled Luffy's hair affectionately. "Don't worry about me, Luffy. I've been through worse. Just keep up your training and continue to grow stronger. I have no doubt that you'll become king of the pirates someday." Luffy grinned, a determined glint in his eyes. "I will, Gramps, and when I do, I'll make sure you're there to see my rise to the throne." Garp smiled back at Luffy, then turned to Rayleigh. "Take care of my grandson, Rayleigh. He's still a bit reckless, but I know he's in good hands with you." Rayleigh nodded. "Don't worry, Garp. By the time I'm done with him, he'll have already surpassed both of us." Garp chuckled, then turned and prepared a moonwalk trip back to base. As he jumped through the air, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness at leaving his grandson behind. But he knew that Luffy was in good hands and that he had a bright future ahead of him. As he glided away from Luscaina, Garp couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his grandson. He knew that Luffy was destined for great things, and he couldn't wait to see what the future held for the young pirate. With only less than 9 months left to train and firm determination blazing in his breast, Luffy was going to make every minute on the path to awakening count. Chapter 10, Drums of Liberation. It's been 6 months since Garp's departure. With the full mastery of haki under his belt, Luffy was now on the path to awakening the human fruit, model, Nika. Rayleigh explained to his student that, to awaken a devil fruit, the user must master their ability, but they must also wait for their body and mind to catch up to their power. So, Rayleigh gave Luffy plenty of opportunities to master his powers. He needed to know how to control his powers, use them in various situations, and adapt to different challenges. Luffy had already mastered the basics, but he still needed to focus on expanding his abilities, pushing himself to the limit, experimenting with new techniques and strategies, and finding new ways to use his powers to their absolute limit. The most important step was to develop his haki. Haki was the key to unlocking the full potential of his devil fruit. It allowed him to control his powers with greater precision, to imbue them with greater strength and speed, and to tap into new abilities that he never knew he had. This was why mastering haki was the first step in Luffy's training. After more than a year of living in the hard climates of Luscaina, Luffy became adept at observation, armament, and conqueror's haki. All that was left was finding a way to forge his newfound power into the key that unlocks his devil fruit's true power. The colossal animals of the island were now completely submissive to Luffy, treating him like their king. The sheer magnitude of the rubber man's growing power quickly dwarfed the instinctive strength of the beasts. But Luffy wasn't the type to rule over anything, since he won't be staying on the island for much longer. He always believed that freedom was the greatest aspiration, and he refused to take that away from anyone, even animals. To their relief, Luffy chose to befriend the beasts instead of eating them. During the last few months, Rayleigh had set up Luffy to spar with him every day to push him to the limit. Luffy stood atop a rocky outcrop, his eyes closed in concentration. He took a deep breath and focused his mind, calling forth the power of his devil fruit. Fourth gear. Suddenly, his body began to swell and bulge, growing larger until he was nearly twice his normal size. His muscles bulged and rippled, his black hair long and flowing like a flame, and his skin turned a deep shade of red. The steamy substance that coiled around his shoulders became noticeably less opaque, becoming more like a cloud. Snake Man. Usually, Luffy would have to bite into his arm to inflate his muscles, but after constant use of this transformation, he eventually gained the ability to make the biting, as well as the constant bouncing in place, redundant. He was now able to inflate any part of his body at will. As he stood there, Luffy felt a familiar burning sensation in his chest. It was the same feeling he always got when he used fourth gear, a feeling that told him he was pushing his body beyond its limits. But Luffy was determined. He knew that if he wanted to awaken his devil fruit, he would need to master this technique. And so, he forced himself to ignore the pain and continue practicing. "Are you ready for this?" Rayleigh called out from the clearing below. He jumped from the rocky outcropping and landed on the ground with a thunderous boom. The ground shook beneath his feet, and he grinned as he felt the rush of power coursing through his veins. Luffy stood across from Rayleigh, his muscles bulging and his red-shaded armament haki reflecting the sun's rays. He was ready to once again spar with his mentor and show off his new abilities. "Let's go, old man," Luffy shouted, his voice ringing across the clearing. Rayleigh chuckled and cracked his knuckles. "Careful, Luffy, the old you is showing. Remember, this is an all-out brawl. I'm not gonna hold back even a fraction of my power, got it?" Luffy nodded with a grin. "Hit me with your best shot." The two men charged at each other, their fists flying. Luffy moved with incredible speed, darting back and forth as he tried to land a blow on Rayleigh. He felt lighter than air, his movements almost too fast for the eye to follow. But the old man was just as fast, dodging Luffy's attacks with ease. He moved with fluid grace, his body seemingly made of water as he flowed around Luffy's punches. Luffy grinned, enjoying the challenge. He knew that Rayleigh was one of the strongest fighters in the world, and he was determined to show him what he was capable of. He took a deep breath and focused his mind, feeling the power of his devil fruit surging through his body. Gum gum, then, with a fierce shout, he launched himself into the air, his arms extended in front of him. Hydra. With a fierce shout, Luffy unleashed a flurry of omnidirectional attacks. His fists flew like lightning, each blow striking with the force of a sledgehammer. But Rayleigh was unfazed. He blocked each of Luffy's punches with ease, his body moving like a well-oiled machine, thanks to his observation haki. Luffy continued his onslaught, his punches becoming faster and more powerful with each passing moment. Eventually, they became too fast for even Rayleigh to endure. He felt a surge of excitement as he pushed his limits, his body humming with power. Rayleigh seemed to be the only one to notice that Luffy was in full control of the trajectory of his attacks, giving him more mobility, speed, and freedom to his elasticity. He saw it as a sign that Luffy was on the right path to awakening. Luffy always enjoyed the challenges that the old man gave him. He knew that Rayleigh was one of the strongest fighters in the Grand Line, and he was more than determined to prove himself. But no matter how hard he tried, Rayleigh was always one step ahead of him. He seemed to anticipate Luffy's every move, dodging his attacks with ease and counter-attacking with devastating force. After a few minutes of non-stop punches, Luffy ceased his attack. He knew that using the same attack over and over wasn't gonna get him anywhere, but he refused to give up. Luffy felt a thrill of excitement as he realized that he did manage his own against Rayleigh so far, even in his Snake Man form. But then, something happened. Rayleigh began his next attack, his movements becoming even more intense and ruthless, and Luffy found himself struggling to keep up. Suddenly, Rayleigh's hockey-coated fist connected with Luffy's side, sending him flying across the clearing. He crashed into a tree, his body bouncing off the trunk and landing in a heap on the ground. Luffy groaned, feeling a sharp pain in his side. He struggled to get up, but his body refused to cooperate. He looked up at Rayleigh, his eyes wide with shock. The old man was standing a fair distance from him, a smug look on his face. "Don't tell me that's the best you can do," he taunted. Luffy shook his head, trying to catch his breath. "Not even close," he gasped. He felt a surge of anger and disappointment. He had thought that he was ready to face anyone, but now he realized that he still had a long way to go. With fierce determination, Luffy pushed himself back to his feet. Even after one punch, he was bruised and battered, but he refused to give up. "I'm not done yet," he said, his voice low and determined. Rayleigh nodded, a look of pride in his eyes. "Then, show what you're made of." The two men charged at each other once again, their fists flying. Luffy was still in pain, but he refused to let it slow him down. He dodged and weaved, his movements more fluid than ever. He could feel his strength and speed returning, and he knew that he was getting closer to reaching the peak of his power. However, Rayleigh blocked, deflected, and evaded each blow effortlessly, his movements smooth and fluid. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Luffy delivered a powerful blow to Rayleigh's abdomen. The old man stumbled back, his eyes wide with surprise. With a final shout, Luffy charged at Rayleigh, ready to show him what he was truly capable of. "Gum gum, pool," he coils them together tightly like a drill. And then, with a fierce shout, he released a rifle-like punch at high speed, unleashing an unstoppable frontal attack at his opponent. Dragon Culverin. Distracted by the steamy image of a serpent forming around Luffy's arms, the old man summoned as much haki as he could to soften the blow. On impact, Rayleigh was sent flying in a spin, his body coming to a stop as he crashed into a few trees. Retracting his arms and letting out a relieving exhale, Luffy grinned, feeling a surge of pride. After many months, he had finally done it. He managed to land a solid blow on Rayleigh. Before Luffy could celebrate his self-proclaimed victory, Rayleigh appeared in the air in front of him. "Who says we're done yet?" he said before delivering a hockey-coated leg into Luffy's face, sending him flying toward a mountainside. The old man wasn't exactly happy about it, but Luffy asked him to treat him as his enemy while they sparred so that there were no reserves of strength between them. Even after mastering his observation haki to the point that he could see brief seconds ahead of time, Rayleigh was still faster and smart enough to not let Luffy get used to his teacher's fighting style and changed it randomly every time they sparred. Luffy wasn't the only one getting stronger. The rubberman recovered mid-flight before he made contact with the mountain. With a new technique he created by combining the principles of moonwalk and his elasticity power flight, he rocketed towards Rayleigh like a speeding bullet. But then, without warning, Rayleigh's expression changed. His eyes narrowed, and his conqueror's haki washed over Luffy's soul. He was prepared to strike back at Luffy with even greater force. The old man disappeared in a blur, his arms flashing with haki. Catching Luffy off guard, he delivered a sucker punch to Luffy's gut, which the rubberman was too distracted to evade. Luffy writhed in pain, gasping for air, and struggling to catch his breath. Rayleigh was not holding back at all. He brought down a devastating kick atop Luffy's head, sending him crashing towards the clearing, his body slamming into the ground with a sickening thud that created a massive dust cloud on impact. Once the dust settled, Rayleigh saw Luffy laying on his back in a large crater with his limbs spread out, his scalp bleeding heavily and running down his face. Luffy groaned, feeling the pain spreading through his body. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him. He looked up at Rayleigh, his eyes flaring with perseverance. Luffy has suffered worse damage than this, and he refused to back down when things were finally starting to heat up. Rayleigh looked down at him, his expression serious. "In a real fight, your opponent won't hold back, you need to be prepared for anything." Luffy knew long ago that Rayleigh was no pushover, being a legendary pirate. They were about evenly matched at this point, but Rayleigh would always outsmart him enough to turn the tide of battle in his favor. Gritting his teeth, Luffy slowly got back on his feet, still maintaining his transformation. He looks up at Rayleigh, grinning like a man possessed. "Thanks for the tip, old man," Luffy said, "but I'm not gonna let you win this time." Several hours later, the legend and the legend in training were both put through the ringer all day. Before they knew it, the sun was already out of sight. We find our two combatants in a pile of broken earth at the bottom of a large trench. The magnitude of their fight reached a critical point where Luffy's heavier attacks devastated a sizable portion of Luskaina, including the ditch they were currently in. Rayleigh, whose body was covered all over with wounds, sat down with his back against the wall of the ditch. He panted in exhaustion while feeling reminiscent of the last time he went all out in a fight. While catching his breath, he turns to see the state of his opponent, Student. Luffy's condition was even worse. Luffy, out of his fourth gear form, was lying on top of the rubble of the destroyed earth, covered in blood that leaked out of more severe wounds. His eyes were darkened, signifying that he was unconscious. He was unresponsive and his breathing became very shallow. As Rayleigh sat there, looking at his protege, he can't help but notice that Luffy focused more on offense rather than defense. He left himself wide open at almost every turn, which gave the old man many opportunities to strike more often. Maybe he wanted this to happen, the old man thought. Luffy pulled out all the stops with his rubbery powers. Throughout the fight, he extended the range of his arms to even further distances while the mobility and speed of his attacks were even greater. Rayleigh was sure that Luffy was on the brink of awakening, yet there were still no results. Their day-long sparring match was perilous, but the legendary pirate hoped that Luffy at least learned a valuable lesson after his defeat. Feeling exhausted for the first time in so long, Rayleigh decided to nod off right where he sat since he just got comfortable. Ba dum, ba dum, ba dum, ba dum, ba dum. Ba dum, ba dum, ba dum, dum, dum. Dum dum dum, dum, dum. Dum dum dum, dum, dum. While Rayleigh rested, something strange started happening to Luffy's unconscious form. His chest started pulsing with a musical rhythm. His fingers twitched. The faint sound of a drum started resonating from his chest. His darkened eyes clenched tightly, he gritted his teeth. A wide grin spreads across his face, his hair glowed a bright white. His eyes open wide, his conqueror's haki flaring to life. He bursts into uncontrollable laughter. Shee ha 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 ha. Chapter 11, 5th Gear. Dum dum dum, 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 doom, doot, da da, doom, doot, da da. Doom doot da da. Ah ha 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 ha. On his back, Luffy bounced up and down on the pile of shattered earth like an oddly shaped mattress. His heart beats in an odd musical rhythm in his chest. Rayleigh was startled awake from his brief nap at the sudden burst of Conqueror's haki. His eyes widened at his student's strange transformation. Luffy's hair, eyebrows, and blue denim shorts, with the exception of his sandals, turned completely white, with the former two taking on a more swirly, billowing appearance. The same steamy substance that accompanied his fourth gear form was back, but now it was much thicker and more cloud-like. Losing himself in his laughing fit, Luffy had a hand covering his eyes to hold back his tears of laughter as he continued bouncing, unaware of how his abilities were affecting the environment. At that moment, Rayleigh knew that, without a doubt, Luffy had finally achieved awakening. Luffy suddenly ceased his bouncing and sat upright before stretching his arms to grab the edge of the ditch. He rocketed out of the ditch, leaving Rayleigh to lick his wounds. The old man wasn't sure how to deal with the situation. Despite building up Luffy's strength and abilities to awaken his devil fruit, he neglected to plan for what might happen once they made it to the final stage. Now that the moment of truth has arrived, there was little that he could do to stop Luffy, especially since he was still fatigued after sparring seriously for a whole day. Without a plan to stop Luffy's ridiculous outburst of power, the Dark King decided to leave him alone. After all, he just reached the peak of his devil fruit powers. It was unpredictable what he was capable of now. Let him enjoy the experience until he runs out of steam. Rayleigh admits defeat before stooping to the effects of Luffy's Conqueror's haki. He smiles proudly and lets sleep take over. "You've finally surpassed me, Luffy." Luffy had no idea what was happening to him or around him, but he was having too much fun to care. He opened his eyes to reveal that they now had red ring-like pupils that glowed with power. Looking around him, the newly awakened Rubberman found himself airborne high above Luskaina. Down below, the massive animals, who were woken up by the sounds of intense laughter, stepped out onto the damaged clearing to look up at the source of the noise. They saw a strangely shaped figure in a triumphant pose captured in the foreground of the moon, its silhouette forming in the background. Luffy's laughing fit finally starts to settle down. Keeping himself airborne with moonwalk, he assesses the situation of what he was feeling. What's happening to me? I feel great, I feel so free, I feel like I can do anything. My heartbeat sounds so funny. He cheered before patting his white shorts and tugging on the cloud that was wrapped around him. Isn't this? He gasps in realization. Is this what awakening feels like? Overcome with curiosity, Luffy dove down toward the ground, preparing to test out his new powers. Just before contact, Luffy flipped over to land on his feet. On impact, the ground felt and gave way like rubber. The animals that were watching him fell victim to his conqueror's haki and fainted. For a brief moment, he remembered a lecture that Rayleigh gave him about devil fruit users achieving awakening and how their powers will also affect the environment around them. Since Luffy's devil fruit gave him a body made of rubber, that meant that everything he touches will be made of rubber too. In other words, everything around him was now his to control. Luffy smiled wildly as he stretched deep into the rubbery earth until he came to a stop. Gum gum, he launches himself back into the sky, making the ground shake with its elasticity. Trampoline. He shot up into the air like a mortar, along with all the loose rocks that littered his surroundings before they came crashing back down. With every ounce, he laughed with absolute glee as he continued to defy the laws of physics. He continued to jump around the island like his own personal playground for the remainder of the night. This is my peak. This is fifth gear. Luffy cannot recall ever having this much fun in his life. The next morning, the intense brightness of the summer sun shined once again on the dented island of Luscaina. Luffy slowly opened his eyes, his vision blurry at first. As he blinked a few times, the surroundings came into focus, and he realized he was lying on a log in the familiar campsite on Luscaina. Memories flooded back to him, his moment of awakening his devil fruit. With a groan, Luffy pushed himself up into a sitting position, rubbing the back of his head. He could still feel the dull ache from the impact of his mentor's powerful attacks. Memories of their battle filled his mind, flashes of Rayleigh's lightning-fast movements and the overwhelming force behind each blow, to the thrilling adrenaline of having absolute freedom in his new rubbery powers. As Luffy looked around, he noticed Rayleigh sitting nearby, patching himself up with a calm expression on his face. Their eyes met, and Luffy couldn't help but offer a sheepish grin. "Hey, old man. How long was I out?" Luffy asked, his voice still slightly groggy. Rayleigh chuckled softly, sheathing his sword. "Hard to tell. I was out before you were. You took quite the beating, but you got right back up. Imagine my surprise when I saw you turning white and laughing like a man possessed." Luffy's eyes widened, memories of what happened after their spar coming back to him in bits and pieces. He recalled how easy it was to move around, the thrill of being able to fly freely and turn everything he touched into rubber. He truly had the time of his life. "You've finally done it, Luffy," Rayleigh said, his voice filled with pride. "Your haki has reached its peak, and your attacks have evolved into their full potential. All that's left is to learn how to control your awakened abilities. Remember, there's always room for growth. Never stop pushing yourself." Luffy grinned, feeling a renewed sense of determination. He knew that his journey to become the king of the pirates was far from over, and he had much more to learn. "Thanks, Rayleigh," Luffy said, excitement evident in his voice. "I never would have made it this far without you." Rayleigh nodded approvingly, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "It was my pleasure, Luffy. Your potential has surpassed my own, and I look forward to seeing you claim Roger's legacy." With that, Rayleigh pushed himself up to his feet, putting his supplies away and putting his arms through his backpack. "Where are you going?" Luffy asked. "I have nothing left to teach you, Luffy," Rayleigh answered with a smile. "And, while I'd love to stick around, I need to return to Sabayati and finish the coating on your ship. Are you staying here?" Luffy couldn't help but feel a surge of loneliness at the thought of Rayleigh leaving. He had been the only real person he could talk to during his training, with the exception of the Kuja pirates during the Burndy World incident. He was truly grateful for the guidance and support that his mentor provided for him, but he knew their journey together had to eventually end. He knew that the path to becoming the king of the pirates would be arduous, filled with all sorts of conflicts, including being alone, but he was filled with a burning passion and unwavering determination. He knew that he'll reunite with his friends soon. Well, it's been a year and 9 months since I sent out that message to my crew, Luffy reminded himself. 3D2Y, Rayleigh said, remembering the message. 2 years later instead of 3 days later, right? Luffy nodded. If we want to continue our journey, we all need to get stronger. After what happened, I'm sure they feel the same way. You still got 3 months. That should be plenty of time for you to get your awakened powers under control. Yeah. Luffite smile. I can't wait to see how much the others have changed after 2 years. I've still got work to do if I want to protect them and their dreams. So, I'll stay here and work out all the kinks until time's up. Good, Rayleigh nodded in agreement. Soon, you'll be able to control your powers however you like. Luffy gazed at Rayleigh, gratitude and determination shining in his eyes. You got it. Rayleigh smiled warmly, his weathered face reflecting years of experience. The old man reaches into his backpack and pulls out a red bundle with a yellow cloth tied around it, then throws it to Luffy. Here, a little going away present. Luffy caught the bundle, feeling heavier than it looked. Untying the knot that held it together, a variety of items came falling out into his lap. Stretching out the fabrics, they revealed to be a red, long-sleeved cardigan with 4 buttons, and the yellow cloth turned out to be a sash, specifically designed to wrap around one's waist. Rayleigh thought he could use a new change of clothes when it was time to leave. The items on his lap consisted of all of Dr. Vegapunk's Devil Fruit Encyclopedia books, a hefty stack of cash worth about 10 million bahts in notes, and an intact pair of familiar handcuffs. Luffy curiously picked up the handcuffs to confirm his suspicion. When his fingers made contact, he instantly felt a tingle go through his whole body. They were definitely made from sea prism stone. What's all this for? Luffy asked in surprise. It's a reward for all your hard work. Rayleigh answered proudly. I got those handcuffs from the World Pirates ship while you were busy. I took them in case we needed a spare set to use for your training, but you've improved so fast that they became redundant. Why don't you hold on to them? I'm sure your crew could put them to good use. Luffy scrunched his face before taking a moment to think. I'll bet Usopp and Frankie could make all sorts of things out of this stuff. I'll have to remember to keep an eye out for more on our journey. Rayleigh gave him a nod before turning to walk away to the shoreline. I'll see you back on Sabaody in 3 months, Rayleigh says before informing him, the Kuja pirates will pick you up a week before you have to meet your crew. They'll know where to find you. Thanks, Rayleigh, for everything. As Rayleigh disappears out of sight, Luffy couldn't help but feel sad at being alone after all the time they spent together. But, while his strength had indeed grown, so did his mental capabilities, mostly thanks to his grandfather's strict educational methods. Luffy had learned how to act more like a leader to his crew, including the virtues that came with those responsibilities. Patience was now a part of Luffy's vocabulary, a trait that he knew a certain cook would be more than happy about. As he looked up to the sky through the forest canopy, his eyes were filled with the determination to never stop growing. Time was fast approaching, and he was gonna treat each remaining day like it was his last. The sky's the limit. 3 months later, the white blankets of winter's snow covered the landscape. Luffy had spent the last few months on this secluded training ground, honing his awakened skills and pushing his limits to new heights. With the time to reunite with his crew only 1 week away, Luffy was getting ready to leave. With all his bare essentials already packed, all he had left to grab was his treasured straw hat. Luffy! A distant female voice called out. I'm coming, give me a sec, Luffy replied with relative volume. As the snow crushed beneath his sandals with every step, he made his way to where he left his most prized possession. He stopped in front of a short, fat tree surrounded by stones, some of them nearly as tall as himself. This was the only safe place on the island due to the pollen that the tree produces, which the animals find extremely repulsive. Luckily, it was tolerable to humans. Sitting on one of the stones was Luffy's straw hat, covered with snow, but still completely intact with Rayleigh's Vivre card still tucked into the red band. Luffy let out a relieved sigh before smiling. Time really sneaks up on ya, huh? Luffy muttered with an excited grin. 2 years already. He reaches out to grab the top of his hat. Well, partner, the wait is finally over. He pulls the hat off the rock, letting the snow fall off of it before walking away with it in hand. Meanwhile, back at his campsite, the giant gorilla and alligator were sitting around the lit campfire, fighting over a large chunk of meat on the bone like a pair of bickering bruisers. Standing next to a nearby tree was Margaret, who was watching the beasts' rough housing. Her observations were interrupted when the colossal lion appeared and prowled towards her dangerously. Margaret gasped, startled by the beast. She pulled out her snake weapon and pulled back an arrow. The lion roared in response, sensing the threat from the Amazon warrior. Hey! Before either could make the first attack, they were suddenly interrupted by the commanding voice of Luffy, who casually walked towards them while holding his hat to his side. This caused all the beasts to suddenly freeze with fear at the sight of the rubber man. "Find someone else to eat. She's my friend," Luffy said, his voice full of authority. He gave the animals a stern glare, emphasizing his warning, to which the beasts complied without complaint. Margaret sighed in relief before lowering her weapon. "Hi, Luffy. The ship is all ready to sail. Give the word and we'll be off," she said happily. "Got it. Thanks." As if on cue, the Boa sisters and the Kuja pirates appeared on the scene, all impressed at Luffy's commanding aura. Hancock giggled. "I should have known. He's the boss of the whole island now," Sandersonia said. Luffy stopped in his tracks in front of the trio of beasts. "Yeah, it's kind of a shame," Luffy said. "I was originally planning on eating these guys. But, after Rayleigh left 3 months ago, I was starting to feel lonely. So I decided to make friends with them instead, and I'd feel pretty bad if I ate my friends, right? Still, they do look pretty yummy." Luffy's new friends all lowered their big heads, mildly disappointed that their boss would still think of them as food. "Don't you worry about food," Hancock said as she placed a hand on her cheek and blushed. "I have all of your favorites ready and waiting on the ship. Since I'm so thoughtful, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to get married right away." 2 years later and she was still an oblivious, lovesick drama queen. Luffy, on the other hand, had matured enough to fully realize what Hancock's true intentions were by now. He saw her as a good friend, but nothing more. Which made this next part all the harder on them both. Luffy turned and casually made his way towards Hancock, who was expecting some sort of intimate agreement to her proposal. Once Luffy stopped in front of her, he reached up and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. Hancock moaned slightly, flinching at the touch of the man she fell in love with. "Listen, Hancock, he said my name again. I can't marry you." Hancock gasped sharply with a look of horror. But when she saw the look in Luffy's eyes, she found a glint of fire in them, proving that Luffy was in serious mode. The pirate empress composed herself before letting Luffy continue. "I'm gonna be king of the pirates one day. That means I'll be more free than anyone else in the world. How can I truly call myself a free man if I just trade it all away with something as binding as marriage?" Hancock's reaction was another overly dramatic swoon. She moaned in delight before slouching and placing the back of her hand over her forehead. "You're so wise, my dear. I've been such a fool. What was I thinking? I should be sad about your cold heart, yet mine is on fire." Luffy sighed, shaking his head in disappointment. "Oh, well, I tried." With that display out of the way, Sandersonia decided to step in. "Rayleigh informed CKU up, so I'm guessing he's waiting for you at Sabaody now?" she clarified. "Yeah," Luffy confirmed. "I learned everything he could possibly teach me, and then some. I've completely mastered Haki, then awakened my devil fruit." He turns back toward his animal friends. "All that's left is to say bye to these guys, now." As he got closer to them, he gave them all a genuine smile. "So long, you guys. Thanks for keeping me company." The rubber man slowly places his trusty hat on his head, grinning with excitement and determination. Time to go. Chapter 12. Return to Sabaody. The bright sun illuminated the vast ocean as the perfumed Yuta sailed through the calm waters of the Grand Line, carrying the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, Monkey D. Luffy. After 2 long years of arduous training with the legendary Silver's Rayleigh, the time finally came for Luffy to reunite with his crew and continue their journey to the New World. Perched on the ship's bow, Luffy's excitement was palpable. He could hardly contain his anticipation. His eyes sparkled with unbridled enthusiasm as the sight of his destination slowly rose on the horizon. "I see it," Luffy called out to the Kuja pirates who were out on the deck. I can see Sabaody. As the ship gradually neared the infamous archipelago, Luffy couldn't help but reminisce about the last time he had been there. It had been a chaotic and dangerous place, with powerful pirates and slave traders prowling the streets. But this time, things were different. Luffy had grown substantially more powerful, and his resolve to protect his friends burned brighter. Boa Hancock, dressed in her regal attire, stepped out onto the deck and stood behind Luffy. "This is as far as we can go, Luffy, so we'll have to say our goodbyes here," Hancock said calmly. Luffy stepped off the bow at her voice and stood in front of the pirate empress. "We cannot let anyone discover the nature of our relationship," she added. Hancock didn't show it, but Luffy could tell that she crying on the inside, not knowing when or if she'll ever see him again. "I understand," Luffy nodded in reassurance. "I prepared." Hancock pauses as she pulls out a fake nose and mustache and holds it over her face. "A disguise for you." "Haha, are you kidding?" Luffy chuckles. "I can't pull that look off." "Perhaps, but, besides," Luffy holds up a finger, interrupting her. "I have a much better disguise. Check this out." Luffy buries his hand into his hair, which suddenly turns a flaming white. He pulled out a chunk of the hair by a handful. The pulled hair then begins to shape and take the form of a white walrus mustache. Luffy placed his magically created facial hair over his upper lip and grinned proudly at his spectating benefactors while his hair changes back to its usual black. The entire crew reacted very comedically, their jaws almost hit the floorboards, and their eyes were as wide as dinner plates. "Oh, yeah, I guess you didn't know I could do that, huh?" Luffy scratched the back of his head shyly. "Ever since I achieved awakening, I can create things out of my hair, pretty cool, huh?" He gave the Kuja pirates a moment to recover from their awe since they were not used to seeing such a ridiculous display of power. Once the awkwardness had died down, Hancock walked closer to Luffy and pulled the hood of his cloak over his head. The pirate empress gave it to him from her personal wardrobe to conceal his identity from the world government while he makes his way to reunite with his crew. "I suppose any disguise will work, but you must be careful," she said, adjusting the rim of Luffy's hood. "Keep your face hidden at all times. The world may believe you've been dead these last 2 years, but that won't stop anyone from recognizing you the first time you get into trouble. So, if you ever want to set sail again, you'll take my advice to heart." "I'll do my best," Luffy nodded. "Thanks." "You're welcome." Hancock then walked over to an impossibly large and overstuffed backpack. "Now, for supplies, I've loaded your backpack with 50 changes of clothes, 1,000 lunches, handkerchiefs, and tissues. You'll also find 3 years' worth of water, snacks, and bug bite ointment. There's also 5 years' worth of towels, toothbrushes, plenty of soaps, hand cream, and lots of silverware." "That is entirely too much," Elder Nyan exclaimed loudly. But Hancock responded with the bashful smile of an entranced schoolgirl. "There's no need for all that," Luffy said modestly. "I'll just take half and use it as my overnight bag." With that, the Kuja pirates helped lighten the load, which still left the backpack relatively big for Luffy's size. The elder still thought it was too much, though. But that didn't matter to Luffy. He rolled the backpack on its side before stepping into the straps, carrying it like a rope-tied mattress. He was now fully prepared to go ashore. "Well, I hope you can find all your friends," said Margaret. "Thanks again for the ride, ladies," Luffy bowed respectfully, a gesture of etiquette that was literally beaten into him by his obstinate grandfather. "And for the supplies." Margaret giggled. "We were more than happy to help you. Your most difficult trials may still be ahead of you," Sweet Pea warned. "I hear that Sabaody has become a den of crime." Elder Nyan nodded. "And because of that, the Navy has been keeping a tight watch over the goings-on there as of late, my boy. So, be sure to take extra care," Sweet Pea warned again. "Will do." Luffy gave them a thumbs up. "If you ever need assistance, the full force of the Kuja pirates will come rushing to your aid at a moment's notice," Hancock reassured. "Please, don't hesitate to call on us." The pirate empress then turned away with a faint blush on her cheeks. "Also, would you be willing to do me a favor?" "I already said I can't marry you," Luffy jumped the gun. No, Hancock bashfully denied. "All I ask is that, when you leave, you do so, without saying, farewell," she asked, curiosity mingling with concern. After a moment of silence, Luffy took a deep breath. He had never had to say that to anybody in his entire life, since they were either enemies that he beat up or friends that he wanted to see again. And Luffy knew exactly which side he wanted Boa Hancock to stay on. Looking directly into her eyes, "Hancock," he spoke with sincerity. "You've done so much for me, risked so much. I can't repay you enough." Reaching out, Luffy gently took one of Hancock's hands into his own. Time seemed to stand still as Luffy's lips met the back of Hancock's delicate hand. The world around them faded away, leaving only the warmth of their bond. For Luffy, it was a simple gesture of gratitude, but also an acknowledgement of the sacrifices and unwavering support Hancock had shown him. Hancock's eyes widened and gasped deeply, surprised by the depth of Luffy's gratitude. She felt a flurry of emotions, her heart fluttering at his genuine display of appreciation. Hancock's breath hitched as she felt the soft touch of Luffy's lips on her hand. It was a gesture that stirred something deep within her, a connection that transcended words. Her heart swelled with a mix of emotions, gratitude, affection, and an amplified, undeniable fondness for the young captain. As Luffy pulled away, his eyes met Hancock's, a mixture of determination and kindness shining within them. "Thank you so much for everything, Hancock," he said softly. "I won't forget what you've done for me. You're a really important friend to me." A smile graced Hancock's lips, her eyes shining with a newfound warmth. "Oh, Luffy, you have an extraordinary ability to touch the hearts of those around you," she whispered, her voice filled with admiration. "You repaid me with your sincerity, and for that, I'm grateful." Their bond, strengthened by Luffy's heartfelt gesture, held a promise of unwavering support and friendship as their journey together comes to an end. Many of the Kuja pirates, mostly the Boa sisters, were still comprehending the amount of affection that Luffy displayed to their beloved empress. "See ya, Moonwalk." With one final goodbye, Luffy tightens his hold on his backpack before leaping off the deck and flying towards Sabaody Archipelago, playfully stroking his temporary, white facial hair. Despite its name, Sabaody Archipelago is actually a massive mangrove forest growing out of the ocean floor, 10,000 meters below sea level. These towering plants were called hustle muscle mangroves. They all had natural, white vertical stripes from top to bottom with large numbers. Rith tree, or grove, serves as an island on which people can live and build a community. The locals go from one grove to another via man-made bridges that connect around the tree roots. The unique quality of these mangroves is that they are capable of producing a special type of tree sap resin. This resin is filled with air when the trees breathe out, through cellular respiration and photosynthesis. This results in the resin-forming bubbles that float through the air. Since the resin bubbles are solid and durable enough to lift a person's body weight without popping, the locals have adapted to using this resin in their everyday lives, including merchandising and infrastructure. The archipelago has a total of 79 groves, dividing them into several different areas, with each one dependent on the area. Groves 1 to 29 are the lawless areas where criminals and bounty hunters run amok. Groves 30 to 39 has the bubble-themed amusement park attraction, Sabaody Park. Groves 40 to 49 is a tourist spot filled with various shops and souvenir stands. Groves 50 to 59 is the shipping area. Groves 60 to 69 houses the local Marines headquarters. And finally, Groves 70 to 79 is where you'll find all the hotels. Sabaody Archipelago, Grove 13, Shaki's Rip-Off Bar. The familiar sights and sounds brought a mix of nostalgia and excitement. As Luffy landed gracefully on the large mangrove root that housed the familiar establishment, he couldn't help but wonder if his friends were inside too. Determined to find out, he dropped his backpack and hurried through the front door. Entering the bar, Luffy's eyes darted around, searching for any familiar faces. And then, his gaze settled on a figure at the counter. It was none other than his mentor, the Dark King, Silvers Rayleigh. The old man was enjoying a shot of whiskey on the rocks. Leaning behind the counter was another familiar face. Shikayaku, aka Shaki, a slim and tall woman with short black hair, holding a lit cigarette. She looked very young despite being in her 60s. Despite their differences in appearance, Rayleigh and Shaki are partners in both business and life. Well, Shaki couldn't help but smile. "We were just talking about you, monkey." "About time you showed up," Rayleigh said as he turned toward Luffy, his eyes glowing with warmth. "Hi, Rayleigh, hi, Shaggy. Luffy greeted the elders with a wave and a wide grin of joy across his face. Good to see you guys again. Before Luffy got a response, Luffy's advanced observation haki sensed an incoming attack from the counter. The next instant, Shaggy placed her cigarette on an ashtray and then disappeared before reappearing in front of Luffy, her leg raised up high, about to deliver a heavy axe kick. Luffy, being the bona fide haki master that he is, hardened his fist with haki before stopping Shaggy's attack by catching her by the ankle with ease. Shaggy's eyes widened at how easily the rubber man stopped her attack. She didn't even make him flinch. Shaggy suddenly jumped back after Luffy generously loosened his grip. He didn't bother putting his guard up since he was able to sense no malicious intent from the bar owner. Shaggy gave Luffy a satisfied smile before returning to behind the counter. What was that about? Luffy asked, tilting his head in confusion. Shaggy and I were discussing your crewmates and their order of arrival, Rayleigh answered. Since you were the last to arrive, Luffy, she wouldn't believe me when I told her that you surpassed me, so she volunteered to test you if you ever stopped by the bar. Sorry about that, monkey, Shaggy apologized smoothly. I guess my husband wasn't just pulling my hair. She then motions for Luffy to take a seat at the counter. Can I get you anything, hun? Luffy grinned as he took a seat next to Rayleigh. Got any meat? Shaggy chuckled, picking up her cigarette and placing it between her lips. Of course, but I've got something even better for you today. How about I introduce you to a new world of taste? Intrigued, Luffy leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. A new world of taste? What do you mean? Shaggy went to the shelf behind her, which displayed a collection of differently labeled bottles, before returning with a tray holding various bottles filled with colorful liquids. She lined them up in front of Luffy, who observed them with fascination. Each bottle bore a different label, promising a unique and exciting experience. You're 19 now, isn't that right? Shaggy asked. Luffy nodded. That means you're old enough to drink alcohol, Shaggy explained, her voice tinged with excitement. They come in different flavors and strengths. People all around the world enjoy them as a way to unwind and celebrate. I want to see if your taste buds have matured as well. Luffy's eyes widened with anticipation. I've never had booze before. Are they tasty? Shaggy nodded, pouring a small amount of the golden liquid into a glass. They can be, but be warned, some are quite strong, and too much can make you lose control. Luffy leaned in closer, curiosity getting the better of him. I'll try it, it may not be meat, but I'm open to new things. I want to taste all of them. With a laugh, Shaggy handed Luffy the glass. He raised it to his lips and took a sip, his face lighting up with surprise and delight. The smooth and warm sensation danced across his taste buds, unlike anything he had ever experienced. His eyes widened as the warm, tingling sensation spread through his body. The taste was unlike anything he had experienced before, complex, yet somehow comforting. As Luffy continued to sample the different alcoholic beverages, Rayleigh's eyes gleamed mischievously as he observed his former student's reaction. How is it, Luffy? Not bad, Luffy said, a smile spreading across his face. It tastes like a special kind of adventure in itself. I can see why Zoro drinks this stuff all the time. The elder couple chuckled at that aspect of one of Luffy's friends. Speaking of. So, you said I was the last one to arrive, Luffy reminded before his excitement escalated. Does that mean everyone else made it back? That's right, Shaggy confirmed. Duval and his gang were here earlier but you just missed them. They suffered a lot of injuries while they were defending your ship. Your friends all stopped here, one after the other. They're all currently out wandering the archipelago to kill time. Oh yeah, the Sunny, Luffy exclaimed happily. How is she? There's not a scratch on her, Rayleigh said. We finished the coating, too. That's great, Luffy smiled with relief. Thanks, old man. Just make sure to give credit where credit's due, the old man nodded before bringing up the elephant in the room. By the way, Luffy, I couldn't help but notice that white mustache. Is it a fake? Oh, Luffy quipped before casually tearing off the white facial hair. Yeah, it's fake. Hancock made me promise to stay discreet until my crew and I can sail away. I don't blame her. After you caused such a stir at Marineford, the whole world is after you. Wouldn't want them knowing you're still alive just yet. Speaking of, Shaggy added before pulling out a sheet of paper that depicted the Straw Hat Pirates' Jolly Roger with a message written around it. I thought I should mention that your crew has become more renowned than you thought. Luffy took a closer look at the sheet of paper. Urgent crew needed, curiosity piqued. Luffy carefully read the contents. His eyes widened as he discovered it was an advertisement for new crew members, seeking to join the Straw Hats. Confusion clouded his features as he scanned the details. But I'm not looking for new crew members. We're already the Straw Hat Pirates. I don't need scrubs on my crew. Unless. His face furrowed in realization and frustration. Imposters. Determined to unravel the mystery, Luffy stood up from his seat before marching toward the front door. It was great seeing you both again, but I've got to get to the bottom of this. The couple nodded understandingly. We understand closely, Rayleigh began, his voice carrying the weight of his experience. The key is to unveil these imposters' true identities. Seek out those who know us best, our friends and allies. They can help you distinguish between the genuine Straw Hat Pirates and the pretenders. Rayleigh warned, his voice laced with wisdom. Agreed, Shaggy added, you must gather information, follow any leads, and expose the truth. With that, you can put an end to this deception and protect the honor of your crew. Luffy nodded, his determination flaring as he absorbed Rayleigh's words. His fists clenched, and a fire burned in his eyes. Yeah. I won't let anyone tarnish my crew's good name, he declared with unwavering resolve. With nothing more to say, the Straw Hat captain rushed out of the bar, closing the door behind him. Sabaody Archipelago, Grove 47, tourist area. After leaving the bar, Luffy immediately zipped across several groves with his backpack until he spotted the first sign of civilization. Luffy's first steps into the district were met with a whirlwind of activity. The bustling streets were filled with merchants, pirates, and curious onlookers. The Straw Hat imposters seemed to have caused quite a stir, and Luffy was keeping his ears open for any whispers about their whereabouts echoing through the crowd. With a keen sense of purpose, and his identity concealed, Luffy weaved through the chaotic streets, his gaze fixed on his goal. He visited shady taverns, frequented any potential pirate hangouts, and followed any lead that might bring him closer to the imposters. As he casually walked through the bustling streets filled with shops and souvenir stands, Luffy immediately noticed the increasing number of pirates hanging around compared to 2 years ago. Some were skulking in the alleys, while some were fighting each other in the middle of the streets. All the locals were either watching their skirmishes play out or decided not to get involved. I bet a lot of these pirates intend on joining the crew of those fakers, Luffy pondered. I need to find a place where lots of pirates gather. Luffy continued to stroll through the busy streets, his senses honed for any signs of deception while looking from shop to shop for any suspicious characters. As much as he wanted to, he would much rather find his friends first. Unfortunately, finding them wasn't going to be easy, even with his advanced haki, since he didn't know what their auras felt like. As Luffy delved deeper into the heart of Sabaody Archipelago, he stopped when he noticed a sobbing figure blindingly running towards him. Or, in this case, galloping. The figure was a full-grown reindeer wearing a blue, round cap with a sideways medical cross on the front, a blue backpack with the same sideways cross, a white and yellow striped tank top, and a pair of orange shorts. After a quick observation, the final clincher was the crying buck's remarkable blue nose. Chopper, Chapter 13. Operation. Unmask. The Straw Hat Captain was exhilarated and content, his spirits soaring high at the sight of one of his dear friends, Tony Chopper. However, in the midst of his euphoria, the talented reindeer wore a somber expression as he charged blindly toward his captain. Chopper had always been the innocent and naive reindeer of the crew, but his heart was pure and his instincts sharp. Luffy knew that whatever made him upset had struck a chord deep within him, leaving him unsettled and hurt. As Chopper was wailing through the bustling street, a familiar voice boomed from in front of him, "Hey, Chopper." Stopping in his tracks, Chopper raised his head, his weeping eyes widened in disbelief. Standing before him was his captain, Monkey D. Luffy, wearing his trademark straw hat, red top, blue shorts, and a wide grin on his face. Taking a whiff of the relief washed over Chopper as he bounded towards Luffy, his hooves leaving tracks in the grass. "Luffy," Chopper exclaimed, his voice filled with joy and relief. "It really is you, I'm so glad you're here. Luffy's eyes narrowed, a fierce determination taking over his features. Is something wrong, buddy? You looked upset earlier, he said before cracking his knuckles. Was someone being mean to you? Chopper's eyes suddenly widened with concern as he recalled recent events. Wait a second, I'm happy to see you and all, Luffy, but now's not the time for this. Robin is in serious trouble. Luffy's expression shifted from concern to seriousness. What? Robin? He exclaimed, his voice laced with skepticism. Are you sure about that, Chopper? Chopper nodded fervently, tears glistening in his eyes again. I'm positive, Luffy. When I saw her with Zoro and Sanji earlier, she was acting a little strange, and then a couple of guys in suits stuffed her in a sack and ran off with her. She's been kidnapped, Luffy. We have to rescue her. Luffy scratched the back of his head as he tried to piece together what Chopper described. What didn't make much sense was how Robin could possibly be captured so easily, and in a sack, no less. And if she was with Zoro and Sanji, there's no way they wouldn't have immediately pursued her kidnappers. And if Chopper was there, why wasn't he with them now? The answer eventually became clear as day to Luffy. Chopper must have run into the imposters. But just to make sure. Hey, buddy, Luffy asked, gently patting Chopper's soft neck mane. Are you sure the guys you ran into were our friends? Chopper reacted with a wet sniffle before answering. Well, Zoro did seem to have gained a bit of weight, and Sanji had an afro and was way more scrawny than I remember. And Robin lost some height, I think. Then, I'm sure Robin's just fine, the captain reassured the reindeer, patting his furry neck. Confusion clouded Chopper's face. Huh? How can you say that? After finding a public bench, Luffy motioned for Chopper, who reverted to his usual hybrid form, to sit down with him as he began to unravel the enigma that had befallen them. Chopper explained that Zoro and Sanji decided to regroup with the rest of the crew to figure out what to do about their Robin situation. Naturally, Chopper decided to tag along. Once they encountered the rest of the Straw Hats, which the reindeer thought consisted of Luffy, Nami, Frankie, and Sniper King, Chopper didn't realize that they weren't his real friends, and pleaded with them to help rescue Robin. But the other, Luffy, quoted, much to Chopper's horror, "It's not our problem if she dies." Completely shattered in disbelief at the thought of his captain abandoning a friend, Chopper charged off in despair, claiming he'll rescue Robin on his own. And the rest is history. Chopper's eyes widened with realization. Huh? They're just pretending to be us? That's why there's two Luffys? Luffy nodded, holding a stern expression on his face. Exactly, the real Robin would never let herself get captured so easily. And do you honestly think I'm the kind of guy who would leave a friend behind without a second thought? You know me better than that, Chopper. Chopper sighed with relief. Sorry, Luffy. I have a tough time telling humans apart, but you're right. I should have been able to recognize my friends when I see them. Luffy shot Chopper one of his signature grins as he patted his furry friend on the back. You only did what you thought was right, but we're getting off topic here. Luffy stood up, clenching his fists tightly as he growled, those bastards pretending to be us have made a huge mistake. So, what do we do now, Luffy? Chopper asked. Standing up, Luffy's eyes gleamed with a mischievous spark. Chopper, we need to show everyone who the real Straw Hat Pirates are and take down those imposters for good. Chopper nodded eagerly, his trust in his captain unwavering. I'm with you, Luffy. But how do we do that? Luffy folded his arms and puffed out his muscular chest. First thing we're gonna do is regroup with the rest of the crew. Chopper's eyes were sparkling with awe, and then? Luffy grinned, his mind buzzing with ideas. We'll expose those fakers for who they really are. We'll track down the fake Straw Hats and give them the thrashing of a lifetime. It'll be our debut of strength before we set sail, proving that we're the real deal. Chopper's smile grew wider, his heart pounding with anticipation. That sounds amazing, Luffy. Let's do it. I know that voice. Hey, Chopper. The captain and doctor's attention instantly shifted to the familiar voices coming from down the bustling street. Suddenly, amidst the crowd, their keen eyes locked onto a couple of familiar figures, Usopp and Nami, driving a pedal-powered, donut-shaped, bubble-based vehicle, with a stack of supplies in barrels and balloon-like shopping bags. Usopp had gotten more muscular and grown his hair out, including a small goatee. He wore a white sun cap over a pair of ear protectors, a pair of new goggles around his neck, a pair of rolled-up yellow pants with red suspenders, and a pair of sycamore boots, complete with his trusty satchel hanging over his upper body. The changes to Nami, however, have become a sight for sore eyes. Her orange hair had grown from shoulder length to lower back. Her body now maintained an hourglass figure while her breasts had gotten bigger and rounder, which were held up by her white and green halter bikini top. The rest of her outfit consisted of tight low-rider jeans with a black belt that had the symbol "fore" over the buckle. On her feet were a pair of orange high-heel sandals. Chopper's grin widened, and he charged forward, leaving Luffy in his wake. "Usopp! Nami!" Chopper shouted, his voice echoing through the busy street. The little reindeer jumped into Nami's arms, crying happily into the navigator's ample bosom. "I missed you guys so much." Nami chuckled, gently patting the little doctor's back. "Aw, we missed you too, Chopper. It's been too long, buddy," Usopp exclaimed, reaching out to pat his friend's round hat. "You doing okay?" Chopper looked up at Usopp and nodded. "Uh-huh. Thanks to Luffy." Nami and Usopp's eyes widened at the mention of their captain. "Wait, Luffy's here," Nami exclaimed. "Well, where is he?" Usopp inquired. With an excited grin, Chopper jumped out of Nami's embrace before pointing to the hooded figure standing near the bench. "He's right there." Squinting their eyes, the pair took a moment to examine the cloaked individual until their gaze lowered to the familiar shorts and sandals poking out from under the cloak. Usopp's eyes widened, and he turned to Chopper. "Wait, could it be?" Nami's face lit up with realization. "No way. Is that you, Luffy?" The disguised figure raised his hood, revealing a familiar grin and the trademark straw hat. "Bingo!" Luffy proclaimed triumphantly. Nami and Usopp couldn't contain their joy as they rushed to embrace their captain. Laughter and tears mingled, and their reunion was filled with an overwhelming sense of camaraderie. "I can't be, Luffy," Nami said, wiping away tears of joy. "You look so different." Luffy chuckled, giving them both a tight squeeze. "I've been training extra hard, and I've got tons of new tricks up my sleeve. You guys look different too. Everyone's grown so much." "It's good to have you back, Captain," Usopp exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. "We've missed you." Nami added, "Yeah, we've been through a lot these past 2 years, but now, we're stronger than ever." Luffy's eyes gleamed with excitement. "That's awesome. I can't wait to see how much you guys have improved." Ending their joyous reunion, Luffy's demeanor suddenly shifted into serious mode. Now more serious and determined than ever after his 2 years of training, he had discovered that the existence of the fake Straw Hat crew was now his responsibility to deal with and protect his crew's name and reputation. "Listen up, guys," he began, his voice filled with intensity. "As happy as I am to see you again, we have a problem. There are people pretending to be us and are causing trouble on this island." Nami's brow furrowed with concern. "You mean you already know about them? Usopp and I ran into a few of them earlier." Luffy's eyes narrowed. "Yeah, but I was able to take care of them," Usopp embellished before Nami delivered a casual stomp on his foot with her sharp heel, causing the liar to wince in pain. "NNGH. And Nami helped, too, I guess." "Wait, so there really are imposters?" Chopper joined in. "Why would anyone want to pretend to be us?" Nami explained, "They seem to think that we, the real Straw Hats, are dead, and are trying to recruit more members for the new world. They're causing trouble, and everyone thinks it's us. I was at a pub when 4 of them showed up acting like they owned the place. I got a good look at them, but they're nothing but a bunch of losers trying to steal our reputation." Usopp chimed in, truthfully this time, "That's when I showed up. At first, I thought they were just a bunch of thugs trying to bother Nami, so I used my new special attack to show those bastards who's boss." Luffy's eyes narrowed, his curiosity piqued. He recalled that most of Usopp's attacks were either projectiles that he shot from his slingshot or a variety of tools and small, sharp weapons. Luffy had to make sure that his sniper's new and improved arsenal wasn't too lethal. Luffy narrowed his eyes. He calmly glared at Nami and Usopp and asked, "I hope you guys didn't kill them." Nami and Usopp exchanged surprised looks, not expecting Luffy's composed reaction. They knew that the fake Straw Hats were a threat to their reputation, but the idea of violence of that magnitude was not one they had entertained. Usopp hesitated, then replied, "And no, Luffy, We wouldn't go that far, we just gave them a scare. Nami added, a little worried, yeah. We wanted to show those fakes not to get too full of themselves. I gave them a shock with my thunderbolt tempo, and then we left. We didn't want to get ourselves involved with those guys. Luffy nodded, satisfied with their response. Good. We don't need to resort to killing if we can help it. We can't leave this island the way things are, though. We need to remind everyone that the real Straw Hat pirates are not crossing that line. The trio exchanged surprised glances. Luffy's serious and mature approach was unexpected, but it filled them with a renewed sense of confidence and respect for their captain. If those freaks think they can steal our thunder, then they've got another thing coming, Nami said, frustration evident in her voice. I'm the only one who gets to steal around here. Usopp nodded in agreement. You bet. Let's show those jerks what happens when you mess with the crew of the future king of the pirates. Yeah, Chopper cheered, we need to stop them. So, what's our plan, Luffy? Luffy ordered his 3 friends to head straight for the Thousand Sunny to regroup and drop off their supplies, although Luffy insisted on still carrying his massive backpack. Meanwhile, the captain himself sets out to find his remaining crewmates. His search began with bouncing from atop the buildings to get a better view. With each jump, he bounded from rooftop to rooftop, his concentration sharpening with every leap. The townspeople below watched in awe as the pirate captain with the conspicuous backpack explored the archipelago in a way that only he could. As he jumped, Luffy's eyes scanned the crowd for any sign of his nakama, his heart racing with anticipation. Snippets of conversations about the fake Straw Hats reached his ears, but he pushed those thoughts aside and focused on his singular goal. Luffy stopped in his tracks before leaping down into an alleyway and casually walking out into the bustling market square, where he noticed a crowd of people admiring a notice board with various posters and advertisements. Luffy curiously got a closer look to see what was captivating the crowd. Amidst the collection of paper, Luffy's eyes locked onto a poster that caught his attention, the likeness of a skeleton musician, recognizable as their musician, Brook. The SK Brook World Tour. What does the SK stand for? Luffy thought with confusion. The poster was definitely not a standard wanted poster, but instead looked more like an advertisement for a concert. If Brook was careless enough to put up pictures of himself all over the place, then the people probably don't know he's a pirate. I'm sure he's doing just fine. Brook can handle himself. He wouldn't just give up being a pirate, much less the chance to see Laboon again. Leaving it alone for now, Luffy continued his search. His excitement and relief at the thought of seeing all his friends again was palpable. Navigating through the bustling streets, he stopped and noticed 2 figures standing in the middle of the street. Luffy squinted as he got a good look at the pair. One was a man with a beer gut, a chubby face, and green hair. His shirt was very similar to what Zoro always wore, but this guy wore a pair of shorts instead of long black pants. Strapped to his right hip were 3 swords, similar in color to what Zoro wields, but these 3 looked like cheap knockoffs. The other man next to him was really skinny and had bags under his eyes. His chin was rather long and his hair was blonde and messy, almost like an afro. He wore a black suit and tie with a navy blue undershirt. He also had a cigarette dangling from his mouth. These must be the imposters that Chopper ran into earlier. They sure don't look like a couple of guys who spent 2 years training. They both seemed to be catching their breath like they just had a long run. Suppressing his grin, Luffy decided to have a little fun with them. Approaching the panting imposters, Luffy greeted them with an amiable smile. Hey, guys, how's it going? The fakes looked up and narrowed their eyes suspiciously at who was calling to them. Is that guy talking to us? Sanji asked. Dunno, Zoro shrugged. Luffy laughed, playing along. Good to see you again, Sanji. You too, Zoro. It's been a long time, hasn't it? I heard you guys have been causing quite a stir in Sabaody, so I decided to check it out. The fakes flinched, startled that this goofy-looking guy seemed to know the Straw Hats personally. Sanji hesitated before puffing out his chest arrogantly. I mean, yeah, you're damn right. We practically run Sabaody now. Everyone knows not to mess with us Straw Hats. Sounds great. Luffy nodded enthusiastically. Hey, I was wondering if I could join your crew as well, so can you guys take me to Luffy? I haven't seen him in forever. The confused pair trailed back slightly. Zoro scratched his head skeptically. Well, sure, as long as you can keep up. Let's get going, then. Cool. Lead the way, guys. Luffy cheered before walking past the two imposters. Zoro and Sanji huddled closely to discuss how to handle the situation privately. Well, this guy knows the Straw Hats, but we don't know him, Zoro whispered. Who cares? He's just won him to Luffy and he'll sort this out, Sanji whispered back. They both nodded in agreement before catching up to their mysterious acquaintance. Chapter 14. Reborn. The new Straw Hat Pirates, Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 46, Straw Hat, Recruit Gathering Area. After traversing the archipelago from grove to grove through the lawless zones, the two imposters, accompanied by Luffy, finally arrived at a wide open area surrounded by ruined infrastructure. The area was filled with over 100 pirates who were devilishly waiting to join the crew of the Straw Hat Pirates, a crew who were infamous for pulling off the most crazy stunts, and still managed to come out on top. As the trio approached a wrecked building, which the fakers were using as a stage, Luffy could hear shouting from the roof. Take a look around you, boys, announced the fat man on the roof. This is history in the making. You probably don't know each other yet, but you'll be tight as brothers soon enough. From here on out, you're Straw Hats. The announcement was followed by the cheering of all the pirates gathered in the grove, raising their weapons in agreement. Getting a better view from the ground, Luffy could make out the four figures on the roof. And he did not like what he saw. Not one bit. The man out front who just spoke was a large and obese man with a broad face, black hair, and wide nostrils. There was a small X-shaped scar on his belly. The clothes we wore were similar to what Luffy used to wear, including a red sleeveless vest and blue denim shorts. He was wearing boots instead of sandals, and the straw hat on his head was frayed and unkempt. Over his shoulders, we wore a black pirate coat to symbolize his position. This was, without a doubt, the man pretending to be Luffy. I found you, faker, Luffy growled internally as he got a look at the other imposters standing near his doppelganger. He spotted a short, wide-faced, pot-bellied woman with short orange hair with a small bun on top. She wore a polka-dotted top and a lavender skirt, bearing her portly midriff, and black high heels. On her left shoulder was a tattoo similar to Nami's. That girl's supposed to be Nami. I don't think even Sanji would want to look at her twice. Luffy thought repugnantly. Thanks to Garp and Rayleigh's tutoring in the past 2 years, the rubbery man-child was slowly starting to notice women. The next imposter he saw was a tall, skinny man with a long neck and no chin. He had a blue hairstyle similar to Frankie's. He wore a red shirt with yellow flower patterns, thin sunglasses, white pants, and brown shoes. He also had a cigarette in his mouth. Man, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Frankie would never wear shoes. Or pants. The Straw Hat Captain criticized in his mind. Last, and certainly least, was a very large man, much bigger than fake Luffy, sporting a gold-colored, sun-like mask with a silly, crudely drawn design painted over it. The nose of the mask was stretched out very long and covered in bandages. The man wearing it had large, black, curly hair and a thick beard. He also wore a red cape, striped pants, a plain shirt, a yellow sash for a belt, and brown boots. Who the hell is, Luffy thought, trying to ponder the identity of this overly suspicious character. Is that Sniper King? Man, he got fat. But what's he doing here? He's not even part of my crew. Come to think of it, I haven't seen fake Usopp yet. Even after a growth in maturity, Luffy was still Luffy. Including the fake Sanji and Zoro into the mix, the only ones who were still missing were fake Robin, Chopper, Usopp, and Brook. Luffy recalled Chopper informing him that fake Robin was kidnapped by some world government agents who mistook her for the real Robin, along with a fox-looking creature with a leash and pink hat that was biting fake Robin's head at the time, for some reason. Luffy was utterly disappointed at how this bunch of disorganized losers could even think that they were competent enough to impersonate him and his crew. Groaning with annoyance, Luffy's thoughts were disrupted by the cocky tone of fake Luffy, as he continues to address his crew. Not a bad deal, right? Fake Luffy gloated. And I swear, when I become king of the pirates, you're gonna know you made the right call. But I need a promise from you first, 'cause a real king needs loyal subjects. Ones that will live and die for him and wait on him hand and foot. The pirates continued cheering for their new captain. "Anything you say," praised a random pirate in the crowd. "You're the man who escaped impelled down, wrecked any lobby, stormed Marineford, and fought the admirals. You've got the world government shaking in its boots. Sailing the seas with you is like a dream come true. Listen, there's only one man fit to be king of the pirates, and he's standing right there," called out another pirate. "You get with him or you get left in the dust." Luffy's escorts finally came to a stop. "Looks like the gang's all here," said fake Zoro, looking out amongst the crowd of recruits. "Time to see what these jackasses are up to," Luffy reminded himself before speaking up. "Hey, so is that Luffy up there? Awesome. He looks a little different. But I guess people can change a lot in 2 years, huh? For one, you guys hardly talk at all anymore," he said innocently, making his 2 escorts sweat nervously. "He's more dangerous than we thought," fake Sanji whispered to his green-haired companion. "We gotta get I am to the boss pronto before he blows our cover in front of everyone. Just who is this guy?" I know, but in the meantime, let's try not to talk or he's gonna catch on," fake Zoro whispered back. "Captain's right there, so let I am figure this out on his own." "Sounds like a plan," fake Sanji agreed. "And another thing," Luffy continued, "you two seem like you're getting along a lot better, too." Luffy's empty words only caused the fake duo to sweat even more nervously. "Or maybe I've just been away for too long," they sighed in relief, thinking that their goose wasn't gonna be cooked. "If I didn't know you guys any better, I'd say you weren't the real Straw Hats." Back with the nervous sweating. The fakes couldn't stand hearing any more suspicious talk from this hooded weirdo who knew them from somewhere. They both groaned uncomfortably before making their way to the stage with the rest of their crew, with their interloper following close behind. "Geez, since when did you guys get so antisocial?" Not getting an answer from the two, Luffy continued to follow them while hiding a wide, mischievous grin and a light chuckle. He pulls out a baby transponder snail and subtly starts dialing a number after putting a small earpiece into his ear. "Man, this is easier than I thought. Who knew deceiving stupid people was so much fun?" Meanwhile, Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 17, Thousand Sunny. After Nami, Usopp, and Chopper made it back to the Thousand Sunny, the technologically advanced brigantine, and the flagship of the Straw Hat Pirates, the trio encountered Robin and Frankie, who were waiting on the grassy deck. Robin's hair was now longer, reaching to her lower back. Her skin had become a slightly lighter shade. She wore a long salmon sarong skirt with a seaweed design, a short-sleeved navy blue leather vest that left her stomach exposed. She also wore dark pink high-heeled pumps on her feet, and white sunglasses with orange lenses hanging on her forehead. On the ground next to her was a lavender-pink backpack. Frankie was the most changed of all. After discovering blueprints left behind by Dr. Vegapunk in an abandoned lab, Frankie drastically reconfigured his cybernetic body to appear more robot-like. His hair, currently in a shaved style, was now controllable. There were 2 stitch mark scars on his enlarged torso running down from the back of his neck, indicating that he had to sew his skin back on. His shoulders were replaced with large red metal balls with socket joints that each had BF-37 written on them. His forearms were now large, light blue cubes, with his trademark star tattoo split by the edge, and his hands were now large red robotic hands. He wore a red open Hawaiian shirt with cocoa pair of red swimming briefs. After a fulfilling reunion, Nami informed the two about the unfolding situation. Nami glanced around cautiously at her crewmates on deck before speaking in a serious tone. "I'm sure you guys have noticed by now that there are some poor imitations of us out there ruining our credibility." "Yeah, I was starting to notice all the hustle and bustle," Frankie scratched his head, baffled. "But they are causing a scene that we cannot ignore," Robin said with a frown. Usopp took a deep breath before speaking. "Yeah, these fake Straw Hats are causing a mess in Sabaody. They're tarnishing our good name, using our Jolly Roger. And they're gaining a following. Luffy has a plan to deal with them, but it involves the whole crew." Chopper nodded vigorously. "Yeah, Luffy said he has a plan to deal with them." Frankie's eyes widened in surprise. "Whoa, our captain has a plan, huh? Then we can't let him down. What's the plan, Nami?" Nami smiled slyly. "Luffy's on his way to find where those imposters are gathering. Once we're all gathered, he wants us to move the Sunny to wherever he is, and then wait for further instructions. The rest of the plan is pretty vague, so we'll just hope Luffy knows what he's doing." A small smile formed on Robin's lips. Luffy has always been bold, but not the best planner. We all trust him. I wouldn't hold my breath just yet. Frankie clenched his massive fists, his trademark grin widening. "All right. I can't wait to give those bastards a taste of my new cola-powered weapons. Super." "Seriously, though, what do you think Luffy has planned for us?" Usopp mused, fiddling with his goggles. Chopper tilted his head, contemplating, maybe he wants to challenge them to a Davy back fight? Nami chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Against those assholes? As fun as that might be, I doubt it's just for amusement. Luffy has something specific in mind. He sounded too serious about dealing with those imposters." Frankie leaned backward, his fingers tapping against the armrest of his lawn chair. Knowing Luffy, it's gotta be something straightforward, something that'll hit them hard and fast. Robin, leaning over the side guard rail, pondered aloud. Perhaps he plans to confront them head-on, to show everyone the stark difference between the real Straw Hats and the imposters. Chopper's eyes widened. Oh, maybe he'll challenge them to an eating contest. Luffy always wins those. Usopp chuckled. "That's true, but I think this time it's more about proving our identity, not our appetites." Nami crossed her arms, a thoughtful expression on her face. What if he's planning to use his bounty as leverage? To show the world that those imposters can't possibly be the real deal? Frankie nodded, a grin forming. "Yeah, Luffy's bounty is sky high. It's one way to make a statement." The present half of the crew mulled over various possibilities, each suggestion adding to the puzzle of Luffy's plan. Their trust in their captain was unwavering, but the anticipation of his method lingered in the air. Purr 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 purr. Suddenly, the transponder snail on Nami's person started ringing. Upon answering it, a mischievous grin on the snail's face. "This is Luffy. I found them. Here's what I want you to do." Meanwhile, Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 41. "Why are you being such an ass about this? I just want to go fishing." "Well, too bad, you can't." Arguing in the middle of a bustling shopping district were two more members of the real Straw Hats Pirates, Zoro and Sanji. Zoro, now with a vertical scar across his closed left eye, was wearing a long, open dark green coat closed to his waist that was held by a red sash, where his three katanas, Wado Ikimonji, Kidetsu III, and Shisui, were tucked into. His black bandana was tied around his left forearm, and his green haramaki belly warmer was shown underneath his coat. He had also grown slightly taller in 2 years, making his height equal to Robin's. Sanji's blonde hair had grown slightly longer, covering his right eye. He sported a dark anchor-style beard, and stubble on his upper lip. He was wearing a black double-breasted suit with golden buttons and a yellow dress shirt together with a brown tie. His smoking habit hasn't changed as he dangled a lit cigarette in his mouth. "It's medicinal, damn it." Sanji was also carrying around several bubble balloons filled with ingredients. "Give me one good reason." Zoro continued the argument. "And while you're at it, give me one good reason why I should even listen to you. I don't want to hang out together any more than you do, but I can't let you get lost," Sanji retorted. "Don't get me wrong, though, nothing would make me happier than leaving you here for good. Too bad, huh? The point is, everyone's meeting on the ship, so you don't get to go fishing on your own." Zoro tsked in annoyance before groaning. "What a joke. Number 7 thinks he can talk crap to number 1 and get away with it." Sanji flinched angrily. "You think you're better than me just 'cause you got here first? It's not like everyone swam to Sabaody. Alright? You got nothing to brag about?" "Sure, whatever you say, number 7. Zoro's taunt made Sanji grow furiously. "Fine, you wanna fight me," the cook yelled as his body was engulfed in flames like an aura. "I've trained these legs on the shores of hell for 2 years. Then you'd better use them to run, 'cause I will cut you in half," Zoro yelled back, also engulfed in a fiery aura, 2 of his swords unsheathed. Raring to rumble, 2 charge at each other in a childish yet hot-heated brawl. Meanwhile, Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 17, 1000 Sunny. "You guys know what to do. Now? We hear ya, Luffy. You can count on us. I gave Sanji a baby transponder snail when he stopped by, so I'll give him a call right away." Frankie's enthusiasm reverberated. "Good." Luffy's voice conveyed determination through the snail. Then, I want all of you to prepare. Once everyone's back on the ship, we'll meet at the rendezvous point. On my signal, you guys play your part. Let's make sure everyone knows who the real Straw Hat Pirates are. I, Captain, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, and Frankie called out in unison with mutual respect. Robin giggled with excitement. This should be fun. With a toothy laugh from their captain, the transmission ended, leaving the crew buzzing with anticipation. They immediately sprang into action, preparing for the upcoming showdown. Nami charted a course toward the rendezvous point while Usopp readied his new arsenal of inventive gadgets and ammunition. Chopper meticulously packed medical supplies, ensuring they were prepared for any situation. Robin studied the local customs and behaviors, always a step ahead in understanding their surroundings. Frankie inspected their coded ship, making final adjustments to ensure its peak performance. Just as they were about to ship out, a voice called out to them, echoing from the grove. "Hello, there." The crew walked back out onto the deck to see the figures of both Rayleigh and Shaggy, greeting them with warm smiles. "Hey, Rayleigh, hey, Shaggy. What brings you here?" Nami greeted them back while leaning over the guardrail. Rayleigh, with his trademark calm demeanor, replied, "Sorry to interrupt whatever you have planned, but we kinda got an incident, one that demands your immediate attention." "The Navy?" Nami asked. "That's right," Shaggy answered, holding a cigarette. They thought those fake Straw Hats were the real deal, and mobilized their forces. Pacifistas, too. I have them wiretapped, so there's no mistaking it. Anyway, Brooke is finishing up his concert, but I gave him a call backstage to let him know what was going on. He said he'd come after the encore, so it shouldn't be long. "Oh, yeah?" Frankie said, intrigued. Given up stardom to be a lowly pirate? It goes without saying, but the man's got a backbone. "Alright, Nami," Rayleigh said as he jumped onto the deck and handed Nami a rolled-up piece of paper with instructions. "Since here are a few tricks to operating a coded ship that I should pass on to you." "Oh, okay. Sure, let's see it," the navigator said as she took the parchment and unrolled it to reveal a diagram of the ship's coding. Her determination flared as she was soon to put her navigation skills to the test. "Hey, Rayleigh, did Luffy come by to see you?" Usopp asked the old man with a hint of nervousness. "3 of us ran into him earlier. He said he had a plan to deal with those guys pretending to be us." Rayleigh waved his hand in dismissal before answering, "I'm sure he's got it all under control. Fighting wasn't the only thing he learned while he was with me." Nami looked up from her chart, curiosity etching her features. "What do you mean?" Shaggy, with a knowing smile, explained, "After Rayleigh came back 3 months ago, he told me all about how Monkey had managed to surpass him, in terms of both growth and power." The crew gasped in astonishment. Robin's curiosity piqued as she asked, "Luffy's stronger than you, now, really?" Rayleigh chuckled softly. "Yes, he is. Luffy's determination and potential knows no bounds." Usopp's excitement couldn't be contained. "Whoa, that is awesome." Chopper shared in his excitement. Rayleigh nodded, his expression turning serious. "Anyway, you should probably come up with a way to leave for Fishman Island after dealing with those imposters." Chopper smirked. "Oh, we know. In fact, Luffy already filled us in on his plan." Rayleigh raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 46, Straw Hat, Recruit Gathering Area." Captain Sanji called out. "Huh." Luffy reacted in annoyance, looking down from the rooftop to his crew. "I'm kinda in the middle of something, you goons. But we found someone who wants to join the crew." "That's good, right? He's a friend o' the crew, if ya follow. Say hi." "Eh?" The fake captain raised a suspicious eyebrow, then an arrogant smirk etched onto his face. "Oh, a friend of ours, is he?" Zoro answered, sweating profusely, yeah, boss. He says he's met ya before." The real Luffy played along, flashing a wide grin. "Yeah, it's been a while, Luffy. Haven't seen you since the East Blue. Remember, we go way back. I heard you were looking for strong recruits, and I think I can fill that part." Fake Luffy stood tall, crossing his arms, before scrunching his face trying to consider his options. On one hand, if this guy he's never seen before is indeed an acquaintance of the real Straw Hats, he might blow their cover if he doesn't let him join. On the other hand, he could just kill this guy right here and now to save him the trouble. However, if he's all by himself on Sabaody, he might be tougher than he looks to make it this far on his own. Not wanting to waste time, fake Luffy makes an executive decision. Fine, get on up here, friend. Fake Luffy ordered his potentially newest recruit, unaware that he was unwittingly setting the stage for his own downfall. Chapter 15, Fleeting Straw Hat. Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 46, Straw Hat, Recruit Gathering Area. Standing atop the makeshift stage with the rest of the imposters, Luffy observed the crowd of at least 100 pirates who all eagerly came to join the Straw Hat crew. The crowd was all cheering and raising their weapons with excitement, causing quite a commotion. At the center of the commotion stood a fake Luffy, his charismatic speech drawing in the unsuspecting recruits. Luffy stood behind him, his eyes narrowing in both annoyance and amusement. Wow, these guys sure are worked up. Is my crew seriously that popular? He thought. Fake Luffy fired a pistol into the air, silencing the pirates cheering. Alright, that's enough yakking. Listen, the fake captain proclaimed. Turns out Sanji and Zoro ran into an old acquaintance of ours who wants to officially join our crew. He then stretches his arm behind him, pointing at the mustachioed Luffy, and he's standing right here. At the sense of trouble heading his way, Luffy activated his advanced observation haki to see what was about to happen. Twing, after what he saw, he hid a disappointed frown. I'd love nothing more than to fight my way out of here, but... Unfortunately, fake Luffy continued his rambling. This little punk seems to have forgotten what he did the last time we crossed paths. And what he did is not something that I can tolerate in my crew. So, I'm gonna beat a lesson into him with my own two hands. Ignoring the fat ignoramus and his empty threats, Luffy let out a long exhale, preparing to channel large quantities of haki into his eyes. Luckily, none of the fake Straw Hats standing next to him seemed to have noticed what Luffy was doing. "'Cause when you piss me off, then things get ugly. And let this be a lesson to all of you, too. If you ever cross me, if you ever disrespect me, you're gonna end up like this chump. Is that perfectly clear?" Suddenly, the sound of marching feet echoed from all directions. The Marines seemed to have caught wind of the imposters' activities and descended upon the scene, encircling the pirates and recruits. "We've got you surrounded. Nobody move an inch," shouted one of the commanding officers. "Straw Hat Luffy, you and the rest of your crew are under arrest. Surrender immediately." "The Navy?" fake Luffy exclaimed, sweating. Luffy felt the tension rise, but instead of panic, a mischievous grin spread across his face. "And don't bother running away. We've blocked off every exit on Grove number 46. You guys leave with us, or you're gonna leave in a body bag. Things are getting interesting so far. What will you do now, fakers?" Luffy mocked internally. Fake Zoro rushes to his captain's side, sweating profusely. "Captain, please tell me we're not all dead." "Stop flipping out, we'll be just fine," fake Luffy whispered. "Why do you think we recruited all these guys? We've got pirates with 100 million berry bounties here. But this is scary." "Then, sit back and watch," fake Luffy said before raising his arm high as if he was about to smack down. Before he could bring his hand down, the real Luffy saw the perfect opportunity. "Now, Doom VRVRVRVRVRVRMMM." The shockwave rippled outward, a wave of invisible power that swept through the crowd like a hurricane, causing chaos among the imposters and the Navy. In an instant, the atmosphere changed. The pirates and Marines closest to Luffy found themselves frozen in place, an invisible pressure bearing down on them. Their eyes widened, fear etched on their faces as they struggled to resist the overwhelming force. On one side, pirates crumpled to the ground, unconscious and defeated. On the other side, Marines met the same fate, their rigid discipline no match for the overwhelming willpower that exuded from the makeshift stage. What the hell just happened? Hey, get up, you guys. Wait, that power, it couldn't be. That was the Conqueror's spirit. This is bad. Nobody told me Straw Hat can use haki. Chaos erupted as the remaining pirates and Marines turned to face the unexpected threat, realizing that the one responsible was none other than Monkey D. Luffy. Or so they thought. "Whoa, boss, was that really all you?" the fake Zoro asked, sweating with confusion. The fake Luffy, oblivious to the imminent danger, grinned confidently as the Marines closed in. The tension in the air was palpable, but the real Straw Hat captain had a plan. Luffy knew that the time had come to make a grand exit without revealing his identity. Did you guys feel that, huh? That'll show ya who's really in charge here. He boasted, further convincing his crowd of followers that he was the true captain. As the attention remained focused on the fake Luffy, the real captain continued to slip away unnoticed. However, the situation escalated as the base of their broken-down platform was suddenly blown away by an unsuspecting laser beam. The imposters on stage all fell off the collapsing building, falling sloppily in front of the crowd. Meanwhile, the real captain of the Straw Hats jumped back and behind what remained of the destroyed building. Pacifistas, oh, hell. Behind the Marines left standing was a single-digit squad of pacifistas arriving on the scene. The mechanical behemoths loomed over the grove, their presence adding another layer of danger to their already chaotic situation. The mechanical humanoid weapons preemptively began their assault by firing explosive laser beams from their mouths at the pirates. The Marines followed their example and charged at the pirates with swords and rifles. Luffy, still hidden in the shadows, watched the chaos unfold. He couldn't help but smirk, realizing that the diversion he saw in the future had worked better than expected. With the Marines and fake Straw Hats preoccupied, he seized the opportunity to make his escape. "Captain Luffy, help, your whole crew's getting torn apart here. You're the only one that can stop them." The pirates were outmatched, as well as outnumbered as they screamed for their leader to save them. Ignoring their pleas for salvation, the fake Straw Hats all ran for their lives, hoping to not be seen. Unfortunately, fake Luffy was interrupted when he bumped into someone larger than him, knocking him to the ground. "Get your fat ass out of my way," he yelled with annoyance. "I know he's here somewhere," said the figure in a menacing voice. This figure was Sentomaru, a large man with the stocky build of a sumo wrestler. He wore a large brown shirt that resembled a bib or apron with a heaven emblem on the front. Around his waist was a large red and white suna. Both his arms and fists were wrapped in bandages. Strapped to his back was a double-edged battle axe that was as tall and large as himself. Finally, he was sporting a Marine officer's coat over his shoulders. And now, as it stands, he was currently in command of the Marines present, as well as the pacifistas. As the pirates were fighting for their lives, they noticed their leader was face to face with the Marines' commanding officer, who was accompanied by two pacifistas. "Captain Luffy, I am Captain Luffy, I guess we don't have to die after all." The pirates cheered with false hope as their words were only putting more pressure on the already panicking imposters. Sentomaru, mildly curious, decided to get to the bottom of this by addressing the fat straw hat wearing fraud. "Am I mistaken, or did they call you Captain Luffy?" he said, unimpressed. With nothing left to use but the reputation of the Straw Hats as leverage, fake Luffy had no choice but to boast his way out of this. "Well, why wouldn't they call me that? I mean, you realize who you're talking to, don't you? Now, get out of my way before I grab your intestines and pull them out your ear. I'd run if I were you. You're face to face with the son of Dragon the Revolutionary. That makes me the grandson of the Marine hero. Garp. I even stared down the 3 admirals in the War of the Best, and my bounty clock's in at 400 plaque. You're not Straw Hat, you human pile of garbage, not even close." Not convinced in the slightest, Sentomaru swiftly delivered a powerful blow on fake Luffy's head with the flat of his battle axe, knocking him out cold. The imposter crumpled to the ground, his charade exposed for all to see. The pirates who had been eager to join the fake Straw Hats looked on in shock at seeing their would-be leader taken out in a single strike. "That guy just took out Straw Hat." Sentomaru observed the pirates' reaction, putting together the facts that they all thought they could join the Straw Hats and enter the New World. But there's no way someone so weak and pathetic could be capable of using Conqueror's Haki. He knew the real Straw Hat was somewhere nearby. "PX5, who is this imposter?" he asked one of his pacifistas. The mechanical behemoth stepped forward before looking down at the incapacitated fraud, his shaded eyes beeping. In a soft, monotone voice, he inquired. "Confirmed. He is triple-tongued Damaro Black. A pirate with a 26 million bots bounty." "He's only worth 26 million? That means, he's a fake?" The pirates deceived by Damaro Black could only watch in disbelief as their supposed leader was revealed to be nothing more than a fraud, In the end, it was Sentomaru, the stalwart defender of justice, who had thwarted the impostor's gambit and upheld the honor of the Marines. "Book it, guys. The jig is up." The fake Sanji panicked, making a hasty retreat with the rest of his gang and leaving the chaos of Sabaody archipelago behind them. The remaining pirates didn't know what to do now. Being tricked into joining a fake pirate crew was bad enough for them, but now they were left at the mercy of the Navy. "I know you aren't real Straw Hats, and you're just victims of this fool, but you're still pirates. So the whole lot of you are coming with us," Sentomaru boomed, causing the pirates to step back, sweating with fear. And while I cannot imagine why, the real Straw Hat is here somewhere. This caused the pirates to gasp. When we entered the area, PX-5 detected him on the stage with the imposters. "Fire at Straw Hat, PX-5. At the command, the humanoid war machine's eyes flashed, scanning the area. Beep 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 beep. Buzz. Negative. Monkey D. Luffy is no longer within firing range. What? You mean he got away? Then, what are you waiting for? Go after him, now. Luffy parkoured out of the grove like a ricocheting bullet, making his way to the border of the archipelago to meet up with the rest of his crew. Once he felt he was far away enough from the commotion, he slowed his pace by simply jogging across the ground. Well, that was pretty boring, but at least that'll keep the Marines busy. This way, I can keep my promise to Hancock. I owe her more than that. Hey, Luffy, good to see you, buddy. The straw-hatted man looked ahead of him at the mention of his name and saw Zoro and Sanji running toward him. This time, he was sure they were the real deal. Luffy's grin was as wide as a boomerang. At the sight of his two strongest crewmates, he was as happy as can be. He pulled back his hood to reveal his face before ripping off the fake mustache and throwing it aside. Zoro, Sanji, it's really you guys. I'm so happy to see you, he cheered joyfully. Suddenly, they all flinched, coming to a complete stop. Turning in the direction Luffy was coming from, the monster trio noticed two large figures rushing toward them. Those damn pacifistas found me already? Luffy groaned. Oh, well, I guess since nobody's around. He turned to look at his two friends while pointing to their approaching foes. You guys want a little payback? Smirking in unison, the swordsman and cook rushed past their captain and at the pacifistas. Hell, yeah. As they closed the distance, PX-5 and PX-7 opened their maws. A bright light intensified in their mouths as they charged up their lasers. Meanwhile, Zoro unsheathed his three katanas. One in each hand and one in his mouth. Sanji spins around rapidly in place. When he stopped, his right foot and lower leg glowed with an intense heat. Diable Hambi, three-sword style, with a dash, the pair were inches away from PX-7 before unleashing their devastating attacks. Flambage shot, Sanji's burning kick struck the side of the machine's still charging head, breaking his neck. Streaming wolf swords. Zoro twisted his body in midair, slashing the behemoth's entire front with deep, static-spewing tears. Landing gracefully behind their target, the two fighters looked away as PX-7 sustained enough damage from those attacks to make it explode. See that? I cut him. Screw you. My kick broke his neck. The two argued, not realizing that they still had to deal with PX-5. The tank with legs was practically above them as it was about to fire a point-blank explosive laser at the duo. Mid-argument, they were too startled to defend themselves in time. Gum gum. PSHOOM, Jet Culverin. KROOSH. Before anyone else knew what happened next, there was a sudden metallic clank, followed by PX-5 making a complete stop. The sound of its laser charging ceased completely along with it. Zoro and Sanji flinched as they just now realized what caused it. Looking up, they saw what happened. PX-5 now had a fist-sized hole carved clean in the middle of his face from front to back. The pacifista ceased all functions as it just stood as still and harmless as a statue, almost like Luffy's attack froze it in place. The slightest touch would have been enough to topple it over. Zoro and Sanji's eyes widened in awestruck silence before shifting their gaze to their captain and were astounded at what they saw. Luffy's right arm was muscle-inflated and coated in a flaming hockey tattoo. More noticeably, the right half of his hair seemed to have extended and was now flowing in a non-existent wind. The duo got a good look at their fearless leader before Luffy reverted his arm and hair back to normal and grinned proudly at his friend's displays of improved fighting abilities. Bad, Sanji whispered in awe. Ass, Zoro added before randomly exclaiming, by the way, Luffy, you're number 9. Will you shut up about that already? Nobody cares, Sanji retorted frustratingly before toning it down and addressing Luffy. We came to pick you up as you ordered, Captain. Let's head to the Sunny. Awesome, thanks a lot, guys. The captain praised his strongest fighters with a smile. And like that, the trio ran off to rendezvous with the rest of their crew. By the way, what did you do with those imposters? Zoro asked as they sprinted. Luffy answered confidently with a mischievous laugh. Shee ha ha ha. They're the Navy's problem, now. This way, nothing can stop us from going to the New World. Yep, Luffy's plan was coming together like magnets. But right now, he wanted to see the rest of his friends, who he waited 2 whole years to go on adventures with him again. Chapter 16. Set Sail. Sabaody Archipelago, Grove number 42, Thousand Sunny. On the deck of the Thousand Sunny, the rest of the Straw Hat Pirates waited anxiously for their missing crewmates to arrive. Nami, Usopp, Robin, Frankie, and Chopper were each doing their own thing, their expressions a mix of worry and determination. They followed their captain's instructions and sailed their coated brigantine to the edge of the archipelago, waiting for the rest of their crew to arrive so they could descend to Fishman Island. Brook was a latecomer. After literally being dropped off at the ship by their allies, the Flying Fish Riders. The Marines came busting through the entrance of his concert to identify him as a pirate and arrest him for piracy and conspiring with Luffy. Luckily, Shaggy called Brook backstage to warn him of the Marines' presence, which gave the skeletal musician enough time to plan his escape and reunite with the rest of the crew. After docking the Thousand Sunny at the border of Grove number 42, the present crew members waited on the deck for their inevitable reunion. Some were more patient than others. Usopp sat on the grassy deck and fiddled with some gadgets. Robin sat quietly on the bench attached to the base of the main mast, reading a book. Frankie stood readily at the helm and whistled a tune. And Brook was tuning his shark-themed guitar. Compared to the others, though, Nami seemed more lax than usual. She leaned against the ship's guard rails, gently swaying her posterior as she hummed a tune. With her eyes fixed on the horizon, she checked her log pose for the umpteenth time, making sure that the needle was still pointing down to Fishman Island. I can't imagine how much stronger Luffy is, now. It's hard to believe that he's surpassed Rayleigh, of all people, she thought with a smile. He seemed a little different, though. In a good way, too. She hid a faint blush. Nami recalled when they first met Shaggy at her bar 2 years ago and told them that Rayleigh was 100 times stronger than Luffy, despite living as a ship coding mechanic at the time. Usopp, making customizations on his signature slingshot, Black Kabuto, nervously scanned the ocean, his sharp eyes searching for any sign of their friends. What's the hold up? Usopp muttered, his voice tinged with concern. They should have been back by now. Robin, her demeanor as calm as ever, closed the book she had been reading and glanced up at the sky. Have some faith, Usopp. They're the strongest members of our crew. I'm sure they can handle anything. And if I'm wrong, then they're probably being tortured by the Navy at this very moment. Robin, Usopp called out, dropping his tools at the dark and witty comment. Could you keep those thoughts to yourself, please? Luffy and the others are gonna be fine. Frankie, his metallic frame gleaming in the sunlight, clenched his fists. Yeah, our bros are super tough. They'll come back to us, no problem. Chopper, pacing back and forth with his hooves, worriedly adjusted his hat. I hope Luffy knows what he's doing, but what if they were captured? Brook, leaning against the railing with his skeletal hands crossed, chuckled softly. Yo ho 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 ho. Our trio of monsters are not ones to be taken lightly. They'll be here before we know it. As the crew continued to wait, tension hung in the air, thick with worry and anticipation. Hey, guys, the distant shout broke through the silence, drawing everyone's attention to the horizon. Look, Nami cried, pointing excitedly, it's them. Sure enough, emerging from the shimmering flurry of resin bubbles was a strange flying figure consisting of Luffy carrying his large backpack on his back while wrapping an arm around Zoro. Sanji, holding his bubble grocery bags, seemed to be flying the same way as Luffy. The Straw Hats erupted into cheers as their missing crewmates approached, their faces weary but triumphant. Luffy waved enthusiastically, a wide grin plastered on his face as he bounded onto the deck, setting Zoro down. "We made it," Luffy declared, his voice ringing with excitement. "Those Marines didn't stand a chance against us." Zoro smirked, adjusting the 3 swords strapped to his haramaki. Just another day in the life of the Straw Hat Pirates. Nami rushed forward, relief flooding her features as she enveloped Luffy in a tight hug. "You guys had us worried sick, but I knew you'd come back." Sanji, the hopeless romantic, couldn't contain his anticipation to see Nami and Robin again. His heart raced with excitement at the mere thought of their beauty. However, when he finally laid eyes on them, he was completely unprepared for the sight that greeted him. Nami hugging Luffy was like a siren's call, drawing Sanji's gaze like a moth to a flame. Although Sanji knew how much Luffy meant to Nami, seeing them embrace also stirred up feelings of jealousy and insecurity within him. He needed a distraction before he does something regrettable. As Sanji's eyes linger over to Robin, a sudden surge of blood rushes to his head, and his nose erupts like a geyser, spewing a torrential cascade of crimson. "Whaaa! He's hemorrhaging," Chopper shrieked, waving his arm in a panic. The rest of the crew watched in stunned disbelief as Sanji's nosebleed propelled him backward, launching him off the deck and into the sea with an almighty splash. Luffy, wide-eyed with amazement, broke his embrace with Nami before leaning over the railing to get a better look. "Whoa, Sanji, hang on." Luffy stretched his arm down into the bloody water. Grabbing the cook by his leg, he hauled Sanji out of the drink and onto the deck. Soaked in seawater and blood, Sanji kept bleeding out of his nose while his skin started to turn pale. In his sickly euphoric state, Sanji muttered like he was dreaming, "Not one, but 2, beautiful women. I need a hug, too." "This doesn't look good, Chopper," Luffy exclaimed. On it, the ship's doctor immediately got to work. Seconds later, Sanji was injected with multiple blood packs hanging from portable IV support poles. The blood transfusion stopped the bleeding and returned color to his skin. "He's out of danger for now, but we have to conserve these blood packs until we reach Fishman Island." "Well, what are we waiting for?" Usopp exclaimed. "Let's set sail before the Marines find us." "Sounds good, but first," Luffy said before turning to his navigator and archaeologist, "You're way too SXY for Sanji to handle. Cover yourselves up before you kill him." The 2 ladies' faces blushed slightly while the rest of the crew stared at their captain with hanging jaws and wide eyes. None of them were prepared for Luffy's unusual choice of words. Shaking themselves out of their shock, the provocatively dressed women entered their shared quarters and came out a minute later wearing matching style winter bodycoats in different colors. "Is this better?" Robin asked, no bother in the least about the sudden wardrobe change. Luffy gave them a thumbs up. "It'll do for now, at least until Sanji stops being sick." "Hey, it's not our fault he can't handle a little skin," Nami whined, feeling a little down for temporarily being able to dress however she liked. Although, most of the crew would have to disagree with Nami's complaint. "Well, we should try to rehabilitate him with something a little less SXY, Chopper suggested before pulling out a small stack of photographs that he had taken earlier. "Luckily, I came prepared." Each photograph showed a picture of either Nami or Robin taken in the most random angles. They showed them standing at a distance with Sabaodi's landscape in the background, some showed a close-up of their eyes, hands, and belly buttons. Some were even just regular portraits of their faces. "Hey, when did you take those?" Nami demanded. "When you weren't looking. I needed to in case something like this happened." The navigator groaned in annoyance before mumbling, "I can't stay mad at you." Well, at least he planned ahead. "Great work, Chopper," Luffy praised his doctor. Chopper then started dance while giggling. You can praise me all you want, you bastard, but don't think I like it or anything, ehehe. Spoiler warning. He loved it. "Alright. Everyone," Frankie announced, his voice booming across the deck, "it's time to head to Fishman Island." As the Straw Hats prepared to depart, Frankie sprang into action. With a mighty leap, he soared off the ship and plunged into the crystal-clear waters below. Moments later, the transparent coating all over the ship started to rise, passing through their bodies and creating a dome-like roof over the ship. Frankie emerged from the water shortly after as he propelled himself back onto the deck. "Alright, everyone, the ship's coating is ready to go. We're all set to dive," Frankie declared, his enthusiasm contagious. But their departure did not go unnoticed. The Marines, ever vigilant, had caught wind of the Straw Hats' plans and moved to intercept them. A single Navy warship was approaching the Thousand Sunny from the horizon, their cannons firing on the Straw Hats. "Crap! The Marines are onto us," Usopp panicked, spotting their attackers through a spyglass. "Everyone, protect the Sunny," Luffy ordered, earning a cheer from his crewmates. With expert precision, the newly improved pirates sprang into action to defend their ship. Zoro leapt into the fray, his 3 blades flashing in the sunlight as he sliced the incoming projectiles in half. "Is that all they've got?" he taunted, a smirk playing on his lips. Nami called upon her weather abilities with her segmented weather-controlling bow staff. The Kleem attacked, conjuring a whirlwind to redirect the cannon fire away from the ship. "We won't be stopped that easily," she declared, her determination unwavering. Usopp shot his homemade explosive rounds at the cannonballs before they even got close to the ship. "Don't mess with Captain Usopp, you bastards," he provoked, an arrogant grin on his face. There wasn't much that Chopper could do, since the little doctor didn't know any long-ranged attacks. "Damn it, why do you guys get all the fun?" he whined, rolling on the deck like a spoiled child. Robin used her flower fruit powers to create a net made of arms to catch any cannonballs that would have hit the deck. Frankie shot a barrage of rounds from the various weapons all over his arms, causing the enemy projectiles to explode. The rest of the crew countered the onslaught valiantly and with ease to defend their ship. But Luffy didn't want to miss out on the fun. With a fierce glint in his eyes, he sprang into action, his rubbery limbs stretching and contorting as he leapt into the air. Third gear. Using his newly awakened devil fruit powers, Luffy's hands instantly expanded at will to the size of a giant's before grabbing the fingers of one hand with the other and stretching them wide enough to cover the side of the ship, blocking the incoming cannonballs with ease. Gum giant shield. The metal orbs got stuck in the gaps between his massive rubbery fingers, much to the surprise of their attackers. With a grin plastered on his face, Luffy pulls his giant hands back before sending the cannonballs hurtling back toward the Navy warship with even greater force. The air crackled with energy as the projectiles soared through the sky, finding their mark with pinpoint accuracy. The sound of impact echoed across the sea as the cannonballs struck true, slamming into the Navy warship with devastating force. Explosions rocked the vessel as its hull buckled under the relentless assault, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air. The Straw Hat pirates watched in awe as the enemy ship began to list and sink beneath the waves, its crew scrambling to abandon ship. Luffy grinned triumphantly, his chest swelling with pride. "Yeah, that'll teach 'em not to mess with us," he exclaimed, his voice ringing out across the deck. "Nice one, Luffy," Usopp cheered. "Yeah, you made that look easy," Chopper added. With the threat vanquished and their path clear once more, Luffy stood on the bench at the base of the ship's mast, a wide grin spread across his face and his arms folded. His crewmates gathered around him, curious as to what their captain had to say. "Nami," Luffy called out to his navigator, "are we ready to go?" "Yeah. Just say the word, Captain." The navigator nodded, holding the instructions for the ship's coating. Luffy took a deep breath, his expression turning solemn for a moment before breaking into his usual cheerful demeanor. "Before we set sail, I just wanted to say thanks, guys. Thanks for everything." The crew exchanged puzzled glances, wondering what had brought on this sudden display of gratitude from their usually carefree captain. "You see," Luffy continued, his voice echoing across the deck, "I know I can be kinda impulsive sometimes. Okay, maybe a lot of the time. But you guys always put up with me, no matter how crazy my ideas are." Sanji, still feeling ill from blood loss, stood back up and lit a cigarette before nodding in agreement. "The captain's gotta have his quirks, right? Besides, it's never a dull moment with you around, Luffy." Luffy beamed at his crewmate's words before turning to face the rest of the crew. "It was my decision that we should train for 2 years before heading to the New World. I know it must have seemed ridiculous at the time, but you all went along with it. I couldn't have asked for a better crew." Frankie scratched his head. "Yeah, I gotta admit, I had my doubts about your mad plan. But hey, it was all worth it in the end, right? Exactly, exclaimed Luffy, punching the air with excitement. And it's all thanks to you guys. Without your support, I wouldn't be where I am today. Tears welled up in Chopper's eyes as he jumped up and hugged Luffy tightly. You're the best captain ever, Luffy. We'll follow you to the ends of the earth. The rest of the crew cheered in agreement, their bonds stronger than ever before. They may have had their differences, but in the end, they were a family, and nothing could ever break their unbreakable bond. All right, everyone, the captain called out, his voice ringing clear across the deck. It's time to set sail. Next stop, Fishman Island. His crew cheered in response, their spirits high as they eagerly anticipated the adventure that lay ahead. Sure enough, the Thousand Sunny began its descent, plunging deeper and deeper into the depths of the ocean until it was fully submerged. Together, they would prevail through the new world, facing whatever challenges came their way with courage and determination.